everybody, today we are debating atheism, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for another epic debate. This is going to be a lot of fun, folks. This time, it's personal between Steve McRae, the Pope of Agnosticism, and not his son, you guys. That joke's getting old. It's his stepson. So, what we're going to do today, want to let you know, it's going to be a flexible format, and for real, they are debating the definition of atheism. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to start like this. Steve McRae is going to go first with a roughly 10-minute, probably around like 5 or 2 minute statement, and then Snake will get his chance to give his opening statement, which could be as long as 10 minutes. Then we'll go into open dialogue. Want to let you know, though, we are very excited because I have put both of their links in the description for you guys. So if you're listening and you're like, I like that, I want more, you can hear more. Those links are waiting for you. So in addition, we're going to have Q&A at the end, which means if you have a question, fire it into the old live chat, why don't you? I will be looking for if you tag Modern Day Debate. That way I can try to get every question in the list. Super chats are also an option, which you'd basically be able to give a question or a comment during the Q&A, and it'll also push your question or comment to the top of the list for the Q&A. We just ask that you be your regular friendly selves for that. And we are very excited. We are going to get started. Steve McRae, thanks so much for being with us. Taylor, thank you very much for being with us as well, also known as Snake Was Right. Appreciate you guys hanging out here tonight.
Hey, well, good to be here again, man. By the way, I have to apologize. I have a little bit of a cough. Hopefully I'll mute every time I do. It's only because I've been running my AC a little bit and it gets kind of dried out. So I don't have COVID. I'm not going to affect anybody, but I'm going to try to get through this without coughing too much. If I do, I'm going to mute like this.
You got it.
Okay. All right. So anyways, so we're having a part 2 on this. A lot of people in the first one had said that I obviously had a lot to say. And so I did dominate the conversation because I was trying to explain the conversation and what the actual topic was, the basics of the topic. And so I wanted kind of a part 2 where Snake could actually claim by claim show what he thinks I'm wrong about. And then we can address that individually rather than having, 10, 15 things you're just throwing out there, because I still have my notes from last time, right? And so I have on my webpage, www.greatdebatecommunity.com, all my positions. They've been there since 2018. They haven't changed. It's very specific on my positions, right? The narrative that I'm a prescriptivist, wrong. I'm a descriptivist. I've always been a descriptivist. I don't prescribe language uses. I've never argued that you have to hold to a certain type of linguistic format. I don't advocate that you have to take a very specific label. I don't advocate that there are any correct definitions of atheism. I am the antithesis of that. I'm the opposite of that. I actually have been the one for years saying you have communities out there like the atheist experience, you have the American atheist that say atheism is only one thing. Well, this is untrue. I've demonstrated this is untrue. They've come around and they've realized, yes, there are multiple ways of using this word. It is polysemous because of the efforts of myself and other people. That's all my arguments are, is that there are other usages. I hold to the more academic uses, the normative usages. Now, that doesn't mean that these colloquial uses aren't found in philosophy. That's never been my argument, right? My argument is that the normative use, if you go to read a whole bunch of papers, almost every one of them is going to be used in the positive epistemic status sense, meaning the case that atheism is the belief that God does not exist. Now, you don't have to accept that. You don't have to accept that usages, right? I don't prescribe you must be this or that. I don't care what people label themselves. I never have. All I do is talk about if they label themselves this way, this is the ramifications for it by logic. And so I have on my webpage came up with something called Gumballs and God, which basically is a better way, I think, of explaining the situation if you have a gumball machine, if the gumballs are odd or even. I also have a argument called the weak atheist special pleading argument, that if you do hold these particular positions, you have to allow for certain other things or you are special pleading. Again, these are logical. These are not semantic arguments. They're not contingent upon any kind of semantics. So what I want to do is I basically want to turn it over to Snake. And what I want him to do is basically fulfill what he was supposed to do the first time. He told me and said to a bunch of people that I'm wrong in my arguments, then that I was wrong in my Duke debate. That's fine. If people think I'm wrong, show me what you have. So far to date, not one person has a logical argument against anything I've said. Not one. I mean, I've been around a very long time, and so if they have a decent argument, all they have to do is put it on a blog or something, right? I'll review it. Anybody can run these arguments. And so if Snake thinks that he has a logical argument that shows my logic is wrong, then I'm willing to go look at it, right? So that's kind of what I want to do. I want to say, Snake, okay, so what do you think that I'm wrong on? Like, give me one thing that you think that from my positions that I've said, especially in the Duke debate, that I was wrong on. And let's discuss it until we either exhaust that or we move on to another topic or have it resolved. Go ahead. You're muted, by the way.
Pulling a James there.
There you go. I know James never figures that out. He'll talk for an hour and not realize he's muted.
All right. We've heard enough of this.
Okay. Well, first thing I want to say is happy Star Wars Day to everyone. If you can't tell, I'm a Star Wars fan. May the 4th be with you. Anyway, first claim, let's make it kind of an easy one. So I want to address what you said about the atheist organizations claiming that atheism is only lack of belief. And I feel like this is just obviously a false interpretation, because they're saying that that's only the minimum criteria, because they're not excluding people who are saying that gods do not exist. They're just saying that this is only the minimum criteria that needs for you to qualify as an atheist. So could we possibly agree on that?
No. If you go to American Atheist page right now, it clearly says atheism is only one thing, a lack of belief. That is only one thing is a qualifier. Aaron Ra on his blog, when he wrote a blog to me for Mr. Atheist, said that they use the only correct definition. These are prescriptive, right? These are prescriptive language, just saying that there's only one definition. There's only one correct definition.
So do you think that they would say that people who claim gods do not exist are not atheists then?
No, because they wouldn't, clearly, because if atheism is only one thing, lack of belief, if you believe there are no gods, that has to entail you do not believe, right? So what they're saying is, Snake, is that it is a necessary and sufficient condition for atheism. They're saying it is only one thing and is the only correct definition. I can show you this if you wish, but do you want to go to the American Atheist homepage?
Well, we did that last time.
Okay, so you've seen
what I'm saying is they're just saying that it's the minimum criteria. They're including atheists who believe that there are no gods in that statement.
Well, again, yes, the minimum criteria would be necessary and sufficiency, right?
Okay.
So atheism is one thing, the lack of belief. Although, if you go to IEP, they have multiple definitions for atheism. As a matter of fact, in my presentation I did ages ago, I gave, I think, 8 different definitions for atheism, right? So would you agree that the statement, there's only one correct definition, would that be incorrect?
It depends on the way you word it. So I can accept that wording if what they're saying is that's the minimum criteria.
But that wasn't my question. My question was, if Aaron Ra says, and he has said in his blog, that they're using the correct definition, that implies there's an objective standard to be had. There's an objective definition, which I argue there is none. I'm not a prescriptivist. I'm the opposite of that. I don't think there's a correct definition. Anybody who says that Steve says, oh, there's only one correct definition, has never watched anything that I've done or read anything that I've ever written.
Well, that definition includes all other ones, other possible ones. So I'm.
But if it's necessary and sufficient, that means anybody who does not believe is an atheist, correct?
But yeah. Okay. But that includes all the other definitions of atheism too.
But if there are other definitions that are necessary and sufficient, would change it to what? Well, it doesn't change it because it's normative. But if a definition says, if the necessary and sufficient condition for atheism is that you have an actual belief that there are no gods, then their definition is not sufficient any longer. It's necessary, but it loses sufficiency. Would you agree?
That it loses sufficiency if you narrow it?
Yes, because at that point, the sufficient condition now becomes the actual belief, which entails that you do not believe. So not believing is still necessary, but it's no longer a sufficient condition to be atheism under a strict definition called sensu stricto, rather than sensu lato, which would be the broad definition.
Yeah, but it's just a subset of not believing.
Again, that's true, but the point being is that you have to have a sufficiency condition. American Atheist and Aaron Ra hold that sufficient condition to be merely not believing. That's their position. You can ask American Atheists on this. It's very clear. And Aaron has very stipulated this.
But
You
that's
don't
a part
agree
of
that Arn
every
has said
definition
this?
for atheism.
I'm sorry, what?
But that's a part of every definition for atheism. So it
No, it's not.
necessarily has to include lack of belief. Every definition.
No, it doesn't. Go look at Merriam-Webster's Learner. Go look at Oxford Learner. Go look at all these different sources that don't have that as a sufficient condition. It is entailed condition, right? If I believe the gods do not exist, that entails logically that I don't believe gods exist. There's a necessary logical entailment there. But just because I don't believe, that is not a sufficient condition under certain more stricter definitions. This is just basic logic. If I hold to a stricter definition, then that sufficiency condition is the actual belief that the proposition is false. Proposition of theism is false.
Well, it doesn't matter, because if the umbrella term is just lacks belief, then that can include anything that lacks belief.
I think you're missing the point.
You can be as pedantic as you want about
This
it.
is not pedantic.
It's just
This is logic. I don't see where you're failing on this, Snake. Because again, there has to be a sufficiency condition. What let me ask you, what do you think the sufficiency condition for atheism is ubiquitously and normatively in philosophy?
Most loosely, it's just lack of belief.
And you think that's normative in philosophy?
Yeah. So next question.
Well, hang on. No, hang on. I want until we resolve it. How do you think that's normative in philosophy? If I found you won't find any papers out there that puts that as normative. Now you have people that argue for it. There are many different philosophers out there that's for that I can think of. Bullivant, Martin, Flew, and
But they haven't written papers.
well, actually, that's about it. Basically, Martin. Oh, Smith. The four of those have argued they rather have negative atheism, but they don't agree that your usages is normative. Matter of fact, Flew says the common uses of atheism in academia is the strong case. Even Flew admitted that. Because Jackson, his paper has it in a strong case. Moser has it in a strong case. What paper do you have that has it in the weak case?
Well, there's Martin, Flew, Latour, McGrath, Eller, Diller, Harris, Hitchens, Dennett, Dawkins, Hume.
No. We're talking philosophers. Okay.
They're all philosophers.
No, Dawkins is not a philosopher. He's a biologist.
Anyone can be a philosopher.
Well, he does if he wants to. If he has a philosophical paper, which I don't think that he does. But Flew says very specifically.
So are all your sources from academic philosophers?
Yes.
Dr. Malik has a degree in philosophy.
No, but he has a published paper in a philosophical journal.
With zero.
You don't have to have a PhD and to have it be published. Yeah, he's published. It is peer reviewed.
With zero citations.
What is that? He has to,
from Google Scholar. I mean, you cite it, but
yeah, I mean, I've actually talked to Dr. Malik. I mean, we have gone over his work. We've gone over his paper. It is a published peer review paper. So yes, it is. If it's published and it's peer reviewed, that's an academic citation. Now, Flew says very specifically in his paper Presumption of Atheism in 1972, he says, quote, where nowadays the usual meaning of atheist in English is someone who asserts that there is no such thing as being as God. So even Flew disagrees with you there. That is normative.
In context, because he actually distinguishes between negative and positive atheism.
Correct. But we're talking about normativity. You've advocated that in philosophy, it's normative that atheism is more held to be in the weak condition rather than the strong. I have no evidence for this.
So let's look at the normativity of your definition. So Dr. Malik has zero citations. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy has 18 citations. Dr. Oppie has 1 citation. So
I don't see why citations have anything to do with it. They're still peer-reviewed papers, and I go by go by Stanford more than anything.
Yeah, and
there's no incongruency between Malik's and Stanford.
For example, would have 83 citations.
Who?
The Oxford Handbook of Atheism.
Yeah, which I've read, but you don't know that's an opinion piece, right? That's a collection of opinion pieces. That has Bullivant and that has Oppie and other people. Those are opinion pieces.
Yeah, Bullivant actually has a degree in religion.
I understand that. He's the editor of it, but he's never said. I've read his paper. He's never said that weak atheism is normative.
Pieces. They're
he actually claims
all opinion pieces.
Right, but he's not claiming that weak atheism is normative. He never claims that in his paper. What evidence do you have that?
Yeah, he does.
No, where?
Well, let's see.
I've read his paper. He doesn't claim
that. Yes, he does.
Okay.
He says There is therefore a great deal of utility to be gained from finding a generally agreed upon, serviceable, if not perfect, scholarly definition of the word atheism. Throughout this volume, by contrast, unless otherwise stated, atheism is defined as an absence of belief in the existence of a god or gods.
That's what he's arguing. But
As
he's
with
not
most
claiming that's normative.
As with most mainstream definitions of the term.
Yeah, that's what he's advocating for. He wants the what you guys call the colloquial version to be normative. Flew advocated the same thing. That's the whole point of the paper, Presumption of Atheism.
And that paper is cited 67 times, so more than all of your papers combined.
Citations make no relevancy here.
It's what is accepted.
Bullivant, by the way, is a theist who's advocating for this. But I don't understand your argument, though. He's advocating to have a different. He wants the word be normatively changed from positive to negative. The same thing Flew did, which means that normatively it is positive. No, that's how it's understood most of the time. He's advocating. That's his whole argument. That's Bullivant's argument. That was Martin's as well, Michael Martin.
So
that they want it to be used.
The articles I'm citing are more valuable than your sources.
I don't understand what
because they're cited more often.
Hold on, just hear the rest from Snake.
They're cited more often in academia. They
I
held
don't
to a
understand
higher
that
standard.
has.
Hold on, just
but that has nothing to.
Just to let
it's more normative.
Snake finish his point.
What, James?
I said just to let Snake finish his point, then we'll come back to you.
It's more normative. So you're arguing that it's normative because you have a host of sources, and I have just the same amount of sources.
No, you don't.
Saying the opposite.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do, and they have more citations.
No, you don't.
So
you have Martin, Flew, and Bullivant, and these all of them are wanting to argue that it be changed normatively from positive to negative. Flew very clearly points out
more popular because it's cited more often.
But you're missing the argument here, Snake. Does Flew not say, whereas nowadays the usual meaning of atheist in English is someone who asserts that there are no beings, there is no such being as God? Is that not Flew's own words? Does he not say that atheism normatively?
Definition is an absence of belief in the existence of God.
You're not addressing the question, Snake. Is Flew advocating? Did you read the Presumption of Atheism?
I've read part of it. Yeah.
Okay, he's advocating. He's saying atheism is normatively held in the positive epistemic status. He says, I want it to be the word to be understood not positively, but negatively. That's his words. This is his argument. Because normatively, it's positive.
So there's more acceptance of that in the field of philosophy.
No.
Yeah.
If there's more acceptance, then why would he be arguing to have it changed?
Perhaps it has already changed since he wrote.
No, it hasn't.
He wrote that in 1972.
Yeah, and it failed
58 times.
Yeah, it's got rejected.
More than all of your sources combined.
It's gotten cited because people have torn it apart. I mean, go read Burgess Jackson's paper in 2017, where he just annihilates this argument on the presumption of atheism.
Cited twice, so it's not.
People can cite papers because they're disagreeing with them. Snake citations doesn't mean that you agree with the paper.
Hold on,
citations have no relevancy.
Just to be sure that we get to hear the full sentence from each person.
All right.
Yeah, it's not very relevant. It's cited twice.
Yeah, again, citations have no value in the paper itself. I mean, that's a person can cite a paper because they're disagreeing with it. I mean, Flew's paper is cited because Burgess Jackson destroyed his paper in 2017 with the defining atheism of the burden of proof. It's a great paper. Go read it.
So do you agree when Bullivant says even today there are no clear academic consensus as how exactly the term should
Correct.
be?
I agree with Bullivant on that. It's not consensus. It's normativity.
So
these are very different concepts.
If there's no consensus, how is there a normativity?
Because normativity means what is normally used.
So how are you going to prove what's normally used?
I can show you 10 papers that use it in the positive case, and you can't show me one that uses it in the negative, probably. Bullivant doesn't use it in the negative. He's advocating for it. Flew doesn't use it in the negative. He's advocating for it.
How can you not use it but advocate for it? Because
that's the whole point of the argument that they're trying to do.
And using it that way. How is that any different?
I'm at a loss here, dude.
I know.
These Flew actually says.
By the way, shout out to Nate Brody for some of this research.
Yeah, well, this is what explains a lot. That's why you probably don't understand. Look, if Flew says the usual meaning of atheism is someone who asserts that there's no such thing as God, but I want to change to be understood not positively but negatively. He's telling you that normatively it is understood to be the positive case. He's literally saying it in his paper, and you're saying, well, Flew's not saying that.
What was that? 40 years ago? New atheism has risen since then.
Okay, well, that's an assertion. I tell you what, we'll do a 1-for-1 paper. You show me papers that actually not arguing for, hey, we want the weak atheism use, but actually in their paper just using weak atheism. So how many do you got? Because I can show you Moser, I can show you Malik, I can show you Burgess Jackson, I can show you SEP, IEP, all these by McCormick, Draper, Oppie, all these people have used it in the positive epistemic status case, but again, if you don't want to believe it's normative, that's fine. That's your choice. But I can tell you right now, that is the normative. That's been the normative understanding for 400 years. This is why Flew wanted to change it. This is why Boulevard wanted to change it. This is why Martin wanted to change it. You can't change something if it's not normative. And it hasn't been changed in philosophy that way.
That's the normative usage in the atheist organizations.
Okay, but I'm not in those atheist organizations. I'm not talking about them.
Of the philosophers.
Okay, so what?
Bullivant, Martin, Couture, McGrath. Some of these are theists, and
Bullivant's a theist. I understand that. So McGrath. Is it?
And I'm not even mentioning Hitchens and Harris, and
those are not philosophers.
Oh, so I guess it doesn't count.
Yeah, Hitchens was a journalist, and Dawkins is a biologist. They have no papers in philosophy.
So it doesn't matter that they're thought leaders in the atheism
movement. I don't care about the atheist movement. I'm not in the atheist movement. I'm not in those atheist groups. How they use these terms, they can use them any way they want. Nobody cares. That's them. But you're saying, you're making a claim. You're claiming that usage is now normative in philosophy. You have not demonstrated that.
So what's the minimum criteria for normativity? Just you have one more paper?
Well, obviously it'll probably over 50%. I'm telling you from experience, and I'm telling you, if you ask anybody in philosophy, they're going to tell you that this is the case. I mean, I didn't even know it's that controversial to say this. To me, this seemed pretty basic, that most people understand that, yes, in academia, atheism is generally held as the belief that God does not exist. That's pretty standard. I don't know any philosophy that would say otherwise.
There is no clear academic consensus to
consensus, but I've never claimed a consensus. Consensus is it says this is what the word is. That's prescriptive behavior, right? We're not talking about prescriptive behavior. We're talking about descriptive behavior.
What's the difference between normativity and consensus?
Consensus, okay, for example, consensus would be, for example, like a scientific theory, right? There's a consensus among scientists that evolution is a correct theory that explains and makes predictive modeling, right? That's a consensus. That's a belief, right? They believe that this would be the case. There's a consensus that this actually works, right? Based on expert opinion. Normative, when we're talking about what is normative, this means if you pick a random paper in philosophy and you read it about atheism, almost always, as a matter of fact, I would say probably always, that paper is talking about atheism in the positive case, unless it's an opinion piece trying to advocate for negative atheism.
In the positive case, meaning that they're recognizing that atheism is also negative. Yeah, I know. I understand that there is positive and negative atheism. That's the point.
What do you think positive atheism is?
There is negative atheism.
What is positive atheism?
Positive atheism is the belief in the proposition that gods do not exist. And negative atheism, which is atheism, is the lack of belief in the proposition God exists.
Okay, and the question on the table
they're all citing positive and negative atheism, which means lack of belief is still atheism.
Well, that's not an argument. I'm not arguing otherwise. I've never said lack of belief atheism is not atheism. I've argued what's normative. I've argued that what they're saying is that is the only condition for atheism. There are no other definitions. I've been told by atheist activists that any definition that says the belief that God exists doesn't exist is wrong. I've been told that's a conspiracy. I've been told that those definitions must be wrong. I get atheists tell me that every day.
I'm saying it's normative in academia to understand that atheism includes the negative sense.
That's not the point. It exists. It exists, but it's not the common, right? That's the argument. What is most commonly used?
All the people you're citing are using it.
What?
They're using they're distinguishing between negative and positive atheism.
Yeah, we already established that exists that way, dude. So but what's the most common
between positive and negative atheism? What is the most commonly held belief?
In academia? No. What is the most common? What is the most common usage to be best understood in philosophy? Oxford says it's
positive and negative atheism.
No. It's only one of them. Only one of them could be the case.
How? Oxford, they go together.
No, they
do
both not.
Atheism.
No, they do not.
They're both atheism.
Okay, but they're different. They're different qualifiers. Negative atheism
Right.
holds sufficient condition for merely not having a belief. Positive atheism does not have that as a sufficient condition. Positive atheism holds the belief as the sufficiency. Do you understand the concept of necessary and sufficient?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
But
then what's the okay in
how are
positive?
they both? How is one normative? It's just a definition.
In positive atheism, right? What is the sufficient condition for atheism?
To a belief that there are no gods.
Okay, so that is the sufficient condition, right? Which includes the necessary condition of not believing. There you go. That's the difference.
I understand that there's a difference, but both usages are normative.
No,
Because you're not going to say positive. How is positive atheism, unless you're saying the term atheism itself can only mean positive.
Which one?
atheism.
Which? Okay, if I had 100. Okay, let's try it this way. If I had a random sampling of 100 papers on this topic, what percentage do you think is going to have atheism as the weak case as opposed to the strong case?
It seems about 50-50.
Really? You have 4 papers that you can cite right now. I have about a dozen. I don't think that's equal. And by the way, those 4 are again opinion pieces, one of which specifically says that atheism is positive.
They're all opinion pieces.
No, there's persuasion pieces, and then there's actual more. Not all papers are persuasion or opinion pieces. But anyways, I think we've exhausted this. I think I've made my case that look, if you want to say that you think that it's more likely in philosophy that there's a weak condition, I think you have a hell of a burden on that. I challenge anybody to go out and look. Go read. Go to Google Scholar. Go look at atheism. You'll find that almost overwhelmingly, like almost every case, atheism is held to be positively. I mean, and even Oxford says that's the most accepted use. Hang on,
negative atheism exists.
Hang on, Oxford says that's the most recognized use for uses, and Cambridge says that's standard. Why does Cambridge say that's standard use if it's not normative?
Because they disagree.
Okay, well, you know what? All the sources seem to disagree with you on this.
Say there's no consensus.
I didn't argue there's a consensus. Why are we back on consensus?
And out of the 5 different definitions they cite, 4 out of 5 are negative atheism.
Again, people cite things because they disagree with them, just like they disagree with flu. Like I said, I challenge anybody. Go look at the papers. You'll find even Moser, P.K. Moser says in his paper, atheism, simple atheism is God does not exist. That's as basic as he can get it. That's his paper. So I don't know what papers you're looking at, because again, all I've ever seen is Bullivant from the Oxford Handbook of Atheism, which advocates for that. Michael Martin has advocated for it, and Flew actually says it is normative. Well, what he says is atheism is in a positive case, which you don't seem to agree with, but okay. But
if he's distinguishing the positive case, that means he's saying the negative case is also atheism.
Nobody's arguing otherwise. You keep saying that like it's some kind of defeater. Show me what I'm wrong on.
Because if he's saying that positive is normative, then the negative is also normative.
No,
they go hand in hand.
No, you're losing the sufficiency condition.
No, that
positive
has
atheism.
To do with it.
Yes, it does, man. Positive atheism holds the sufficient condition for atheism to be the belief that God does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sufficiency condition. You've already acknowledged that earlier.
But why is he distinguishing positive and negative atheism if he's trying to claim that there's only one normative usage of it?
Because in philosophy, for the last 400 years, if people use the word atheist in academia, they mean it in the positive case. Flew came around in 1972 and he wanted to change that. Smith wanted to change it in his book called A Case Against God, because they wanted to include many more people in the demographic of the term atheist for political reasons. This was a political movement to change the definition from positive to negative.
No.
Well, yeah, that's a fact. Dude, I just had David Silverman the other day talking about this, and he was one of the prime leaders in this when he wrote a Fighting God.
I'm sure there's a political usage to it, but that's not the reason why.
That was the reason. I'm telling you, that's the historical reason behind this. You can contact American Atheists and ask them. Pam Whistler is their editor-in-chief. She has told me this exact same thing.
It's an epistemic reason to distinguish between those who reject theism and those who accept that there are no gods.
Rejection is acceptance of there are no gods. That's the same thing.
No.
Okay, well, rejection and logic, rejectionism from Frey Geach is the position that you accept negation. That's normative. Now you want again. This is why words matter on philosophy in the domain of discourse.
Okay, well, you can play word games.
It's not word games.
It doesn't matter.
Look, if you're going to be talking about a specific topic, Snake, it helps to understand the words as understood in the domain. You don't have to use them
So
that
they're
way.
understood in the positive and negative sense. That's why they use those qualifiers in most of your sources.
If somebody is using the term atheism in a paper, almost always it's going to be positive because that's the norm. Now, these atheist organizations want to have that changed. And the reason they want to have it changed, and the reason they've contacted dictionaries, they did contact like Merriam-Webster, and they say, we want to add lack of belief in there. They do that for demographics, and they do that for political reasons. So again, if you don't believe me, go ask American Atheists. Go ask David Silverman. I have.
It's because there's a greater deal of utility, and that's what these papers are saying.
Well, utility argument is a different thing altogether. I mean, that's what David Silverman and that's what genetically modified skeptic argue. They argue that they want more people to be under the guise of atheism for demographic and political reasons because they want change, right? They want a greater secular society. That is a utility argument, right? I'm not in those organizations, right? So, I mean, for example, are you okay with me using atheism in the positive case? If I say, look, when I say atheism, I'm referring to somebody who believes there are no gods. Are you okay with that?
If you qualify it with positive atheism.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's what positive atheism is.
Well, as long as there's a qualifier, then that means that atheism alone includes both negative and positive atheism.
No, you keep on making this horrific mistake here.
How is negative atheism not atheism?
Because you're looking at the logic and not the epistemic reasoning. Negative atheism holds, and I'm going to say this again, negative atheism holds sufficiency that merely not believing is sufficient to be atheist. Positive atheist there's a sufficiency of having the belief. That's a huge difference there.
Yeah, I know. That's
okay.
The reason
So positive atheism
reasons.
So positive atheism has a sufficient condition that negative atheism doesn't have. I'm not I don't hold a negative atheism. Right?
Is negative atheism atheism?
Yes, sure.
That's the whole point. So atheism is lack of belief at the most bare bones minimum.
But it's not sufficient.
It can also be
not everybody subscribes
strict.
to that definition. I don't, and most academics don't.
You apparently do, since you
I don't.
You just said negative atheism is atheism.
Yes, in some circles. Yes, I don't, but I don't subscribe to that. In some circles, theory is a guess. But I'm not in those. I am not in those groups that use those types of lackadaisical, vague sensu lato usages. Why should I subscribe to them? No, they're very vague.
You know exactly what negative atheism means.
Oh, believe me, it ends up in a lot of different problems, which we went into last time. But I'm just trying to get you to understand the difference between positive and negative atheism having a sufficiency condition, which you seem to recognize before, but now you seem to forget. I don't know why.
No, you're just not. You're just kind of using that to get away from the point that negative atheism is also atheism.
If you accept those definitions, sure, absolutely. I don't.
Which most of your sources do.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
No, they don't. They say that it exists, but it's not normative.
They don't accept.
They say it exists because these activists have made it, and these things are descriptive, right? But a dictionary is prescriptive. I mean, descriptive, not prescriptive, right? It doesn't define words. It doesn't tell you this is how a word has to be used. What it tells you is this is how the word is being used synchronically, which means in modern times, right? Not dichronically, which is over a period of history, how it's changed. It's saying, look, these atheist group use this word this way. That's why the dictionary reflects that. I don't accept their usages for me, right? That just like I don't accept evolution to be a guess, right? Or theory to be guess, or evolution to be change. I don't use those types of sensu lato definitions. Like, would you accept a creation and say, look, evolution is merely change? That's what it says in the dictionary. Sure, yeah, evolution's change.
Yeah.
But I don't use that when I'm talking about science. I don't use atheism in the negative case when I'm talking about philosophy because that's not the normative case.
No,
doesn't mean I don't agree that weak atheism doesn't exist. Of course it does. And if you want to use it, go ahead. I've never said otherwise. But you can't apply that definition to me. Under the more stricter definitions, which I use, I'm not an atheist. Agreed?
Well, you are an atheist.
No, I'm not. Don't be dishonest.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay, well, I first of all, don't label other people. That is intellectually dishonest. I'm not an atheist. Anybody who says I am being intellectually honest. Now you say, look, according to weak definition, Steve's an atheist. Sure. Okay, great. Yeah, whatever. If you say that a not theist is a rock, then I'm a rock. Okay. Whatever you wanted to play semantic games, that's fine. But my position is not atheism.
So
that's not my position.
When a creationist says that evolution is merely change, they're correct. That's why I always stipulate biological evolution. That's why you add qualifiers on, because they're all normative definitions.
And in this case, the normative definitions that I'm using is the positive case. There you go.
Why are you qualifying the positive case?
Because that's the definitions that I use and most philosophers use.
Why wouldn't you just say the positive case instead of?
You can use positive, explicit,
atheism.
Strong, whatever. That's normative. When you see the word atheism,
Right, because
that's what it refers to.
It's normative to qualify it because negative atheism is part of that normative set of qualifiers.
It's not epistemically.
All of those qualifiers are normative. So when you look at Wikipedia, why are they? Is it not normative? Are the writers on Wikipedia not using normativity?
I don't know what the hell you're talking about, to be honest with you.
Okay, Wikipedia uses the definition of weak atheism to say even babies are atheists because they just lack belief.
And I've argued against that, right? I mean, I'm adamantly against. Even Dawkins says babies are not atheists.
So if
right, I mean, Dawkins himself says it is a bad argument to say babies are atheists, right?
So how is this making it onto Wikipedia if it's not normative?
Well, hang on, answer my question first.
What was it?
Dawkins has even said calling babies atheist is ridiculous. He thinks it's type of indoctrination.
Is that a question?
Agree with him? Yeah. Do you agree with him?
Do I agree with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I don't think so.
All right. And so I've explained before that using these really vague definitions, these central latitude definitions, it does lead to absurdities, I think. Right? I mean, to call baby an atheist or rock an atheist, I think is ludicrous, right? But Bionic Dance has been arguing that for years, right?
Well, that's why it's distinguished between implicit and explicit. So babies are counted under implicit, but not necessarily weak.
That's the same thing. Implicit means weak. That's the same logical position. But let me give you an example of why I think you're misunderstanding here. Let's look at theism real quick. Under theism, you have Christian and Jewish. Would you agree?
I mean, those are two of them.
Correct. Okay. I'm picking two. Mm-hmm. Both of them believe God exists. They're both BP, right? Believes the proposition of God exists. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
They're completely different positions from each other. So just because positive atheism and weak atheism, right? One entails the others because positive entails weak, doesn't mean they're the same position. They are epistemically different from each other, just like Jewish and Christian, even though they're the same logic, both a theist, there are very much differences between a weak atheist and a positive atheist. The weak atheist being a person who says, look, if you merely lack a belief, you're an atheist. The positive says, no, you have to actually have a belief to have sufficiency to be an atheist. I hold to that case. And you seem to have a problem with that. I don't know why.
Because it seems like you have a problem with saying that the term weak atheist is a normative philosophical term.
It's not normative. It's used, it exists, but normative means that the most what you see the most often, right? Which is normally the case, right? Or what you ought to use. It actually could be an ought. Normatively can also be used for saying if you want to read a paper in context, you ought to use atheism in the positive case, or you want to understand the paper.
But here's my problem is it seems like you're saying more papers are written about positive atheism.
No. What I'm saying is more papers are written using atheism in the positive case as being how they want to discuss the topic.
So how come they all distinguish between positive and negative atheism?
Once again, because people like Flew in 1972 wanted to make the argument to change them from positive to negative. That was this whole paper called The Presumption of Atheism. That's what his argument was.
Stuck. If everyone keeps making this distinction, it seems like that distinction has stuck in the usage.
Well, I have to completely disagree with you. I mean, like I said, there's obviously a sufficiency difference, and I think you agree there's a sufficiency difference. Now, once again, though, if I hold to the stricter cases, right, under those stricter cases, I'm not an atheist. Do you agree?
Yeah, if you define it that way.
All right. So because there's different definitions, when somebody says there's only one correct definition, like Aaron Ra does, is he wrong?
I think you're misinterpreting that.
No, he's very correct. I mean, blame on this. There's only one definition. He'll say there's only one definition and anything else is wrong. He's said this numerous times. Come on.
If I accept that, then that means that he can't accept positive atheists as atheists.
Well, and I've actually said that before. I actually asked him that. I'm like, well, what do you call positive? What do you say to somebody who believes that God does not exist? If you accept the other one's the only correct definition, right? So there's a problem to be had
What
there,
did he
right?
say?
I don't remember, to be honest with you. I mean, I've had so many conversations with him in writing on this particular topic, but I have brought that up before. I'm like, I've asked people, well, the last person I remember this specific, I said, what do you call somebody who believes there are no gods? He's like, I don't want to answer that question. I'm like, why? He's like, well, that's a trap game. I'm like, no, it's not. It's a very simple question. Right? Like, what do you say? What do you call somebody who believes there's no gods exist?
Positive or strong atheist?
I just call him atheist. I don't see why you need a differentiation.
Because it's more clear.
Why?
Because it distinguishes between someone who believes there are no gods and who just
okay. So by
rejects
adding this weak
theism.
condition, you've now made it more vague. This is why I'm saying this is why changing it from positive to negative has made it so much more vague that before, years ago, somebody says I'm an atheist, you knew what they meant by it. They were somebody who believes in no God. Now you have to ask them, well, what do you mean by that? It has added this ambiguity to the dialogue. That's why I think it's silly to try to push this narrative that atheism is only a lack of belief as a sufficient condition, because that's what I do read RN as, and that's what I read the American Atheist as. It's very clear what they say. Atheism is only one thing, a lack of belief. Well, that's clearly a false statement. That proposition is false because it's not only one thing. There are other things by other definitions, right? Because what they're doing, they're trying to make what's called a conceptual dichotomy. They want to make it that everybody has to fall into two groups, theist or atheist. You agree?
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem with that because you're fine with that when we're talking about theist or non-theist.
You're not asking my question. They're trying to make it so that everybody is either an atheist or theist, correct?
Sure, but it's the same with theist versus non-theist.
No, it's
And
not.
Some of these
it's not.
papers say that theism is non-theism.
No,
atheism is non-theism.
You're confused here. I can actually derive theist and not theist from first principles. I can start with the law of non-contradiction, then I can get to a negation rule, and then I can get to atheist or not theist. That's law of excluded middle. For any instantiation of A or not A, you have apple or not apple, theist or not apple, or excuse me, theist or not theist, right? So any instantiation, you have a negation of that. And that works for the whole realm of propositions. For if I have a set of propositions, anything I instantiate in there is going to have a not to it. It is not the case, right? So same thing by just a simple A or not A. If I say A or not A, apple or not apple, that's just logic. That's law of excluded middle, correct? So actually it's more the principle by balance, but you can't get that with atheism. Atheism, you have to change the word. You actually have to, that's a semantic now. You have to say, okay, not theist, I'm going to make that atheist, but for semantic reasons. You can't derive that logically from first principles. Okay, you have to actually stipulate that by a semantic argument. So, but do you agree, though, that they are trying to make everybody theist and atheist?
They're basically just substituting non-theism for atheism.
Sure, but I could do that with dog. Theist or not, dog. Not theist, you're a dog. That's a semantic argument. True.
Dog doesn't address theism.
It makes no difference. These are words. Words are signifiers. If I have a dichotomy, theist or dog, not theist, therefore dog. Is that not a disjunctive syllogism where you're eliminating one of the disjuncts?
Well, if dog means non-theism, then it doesn't change anything.
Well, yeah, but you're just stipulating that, right? So, but then in that case, dog means non-theist, sure. But I'm a dog, right?
Sure.
That's all you're doing. All you're doing is changing not theist to be atheist and say, look, boom, you're atheist. But I don't hold an atheism, that word means the same thing as non-theist. I hold that in the positive case. So you can't, there's an intentionality difference there. Because if I say Steve is non-theist, that statement proposition is true. But if I put in the word Steve is atheist as a co-referential term, that statement is no longer transparent. It is opaque. There's an intentionality problem there because that statement has now gone from true to false.
In Clatour's the definition of atheism, he also cites Ernst Nagel. So that's two more papers.
Oh no, Nagel. Hang on, Nagel.
On.
If you read Nagel, Nagel actually has it in the positive case. Go read Nagel's papers. He actually does say it's positive.
Well, he says, I shall understand atheism as a critique and a denial of the major claims of all varieties of theism.
Yeah, and what is denial?
Well, I guess it depends on context.
Denial in logic. Again, these are philosophers. These are logicians, a lot of them. Denial of P means that you hold P to be false. To deny P means false. That's what deny means. So then when you're reading these things and you read these papers, if you don't know the vernacular they're using, this is why you don't understand them.
You said that about reject.
Same thing. Reject, deny, disbelief. These are all epistemic statuses of
So
not
what
accepting
do you
negation and
say
affirming,
when I?
not accepting the proposition and affirming negation.
What's the word to use when I say don't accept?
Non-acceptant. You don't accept. You just say you don't accept.
Okay, well,
Or unbelief.
they all mean the
Unbelief.
same thing.
Unbelief. You go look up disbelief versus unbelief. It tells you this. Numerous sources.
Denying a belief is not holding a belief.
Unbelief is
Rejecting
saying
a
that I
belief.
don't accept. Disbelief means that I accept negation. This is how these words are used in logic.
You just contradicted yourself.
How?
You said that disbelief means you accept the negation, but then
Correct.
you said merely not accepting the positive is disbelief.
No, it's unbelief.
Okay.
And if you go to www.greatdebatecommunity.com and look under my blog under disbelief, I have all the citations for this. If you wish, I can pull it up. But basically, and by the way, okay, so let me ask you this: what do you think disbelief means? I'm curious.
Not holding a belief. I don't believe you.
You don't believe me. Okay, so you think that disbelief means lack of belief, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so can I ask you why American Atheist says that atheism is not a disbelief then?
I don't know. It's all semantics.
Well, hang on. No. They say in American Atheist says if you go to their about page, what is atheism? They say atheism is not a disbelief or denial. Why is that? Which means they're saying there's not a lack of belief, according to you.
Yeah, that's why this issue is complicated. That's why it's has better utility to start with a broader definition and then clarify.
That's not answering my question here. It says under what is atheism? It says very clear. To be clear, this is what it says. To be clear, atheism is not a disbelief in gods or a denial of gods. It is a lack of belief in gods. Now you're saying that they're using this word wrong, I guess. You're saying that no, disbelief is a lack of belief. So let's instantiate that. Let's substitute. If lack of belief and denial and disbelief are all synonymous and co-referential, then this would read as atheism is not the lack of belief in gods or a lack of belief in gods.
Yeah, because disbelief means inability or refusal to accept something as true or real, or lack.
Forget reading from a dictionary here. Try to understand the logic here, man. You're saying that disbelief is a lack of belief. That's what it's used as in these papers.
Apparently.
That's not how it's used in these papers.
Couture is wrong.
Who?
Couture.
No, when you see the word disbelief in a paper, look. When you see the word disbelief in a paper, they're saying that matter of fact, if you go to Rutgers Philosophy 101, it says if you hold that the position of the proposition to be false, the correct epistemic status for that is called disbelief. So if you think P is false, that is called disbelief. That's Rutgers. Would you like to see the citation for that? Because I have it.
Sure, but no one says unbelief.
Well,
people use words like deny or reject.
Okay, but we're look, when you read a scientific paper in science, you have to understand the words, how they use it, dude. And if you don't, then you're going to have some confusion. Simple as that. So let me go to screen share here. Okay, can you see this?
Now they can.
Okay, so this is called Rational Belief 1. This is from a series from Rutgers University Philosophy. I believe it was 101 course, but it could be 110. It says, disbelief. If you conclude that a proposition is false, then the appropriate attitude toward that proposition is disbelief. So when you go to American Atheist here, right, and it says, to be clear, atheism is not a disbelief in God or denial of God, it's a lack in God. They're using it this way, which is, again, normative. They're saying atheism is not saying the proposition is false. It is a lack of belief in gods. This is how they're intending it. They're actually using disbelief and denial the way you would find it in academia, right? But you're saying that's wrong. You're saying, oh, it's just merely not believing. Well, under what standard is that? Because every source that I have shows otherwise.
English, because apparently not all academics are agreeing to this.
Really? Find me one that doesn't. Disbelief is more common. Disbelief is more commonly used to express a mental opposition which does not imply blameworthy disregard of evidence. Unbelief may be simply failure to believe from a lack of evidence or knowledge. Unbelief is I don't believe. Disbelief. positive unbelief, mental rejection of a statement or assertion that the credence is demanded. That is basically saying, I believe it be the case. Here we go. Disbelief is a case of belief. To believe a sentence is false is to believe negation of a sentence is true. Burge Jackson, 2017, Rethinking the Presumption of Atheism. Now, you're saying that these papers are wrong. You're saying that these sources are wrong. You're saying disbelief is merely, I don't believe. Well, if that's the case, then why is American atheists using it the way they're contrary to how you're using it? And again,
Semantics.
I'm not advocating any prescriptive
You can
behavior.
pick a word as long as you define it.
The problem you're running into, Snake, is that if you don't know how these words are typically used in a field, you're not going to understand the concepts, period. This works for science or any other field. Would you agree?
Well, apparently it's used two different ways, because I just read you a quote of Clatour interpreting, what did he say? Reject or denial. As
Reject or denial means to accept negation in logic. If I say reject P, that means that I'm accepting not P.
Both words.
But that's
Rejection
what these,
or denial.
Denial is the same thing. There's a little bit difference in speech act theory, but for logically, reject, denial, and disbelief all mean the same thing. You're accepting negation. That's how they're understood in logic. Logic, right? I mean, you do accept logic, correct?
That's a different field from philosophy.
Well, no, logic is part of philosophy.
And so it's not, they're not going to be using the same jargon all the time.
Well, I'm not understanding your argument here. G. Moore, like for example, in G. Moore's AEL2, which is the autoepistemic logic that he uses, logic has three epistemic positions: acceptance, which means you believe P is true; rejection, which means you believe P is false; and lack of decision, which is suspension of judgment. Okay. Now, this is normative. This is also what Rutgers says. Now, you're saying that none of these things are normative. I don't see what you're citing for this.
You can reject an argument from theism.
Okay,
That's the
you're using but you're using a colloquial term, right? You're saying reject is this mere non-acceptance, right?
Sure, but I can
like
use
if
it
I don't
both
hire
ways.
you, I reject you. I haven't hired you, right? You're saying this just mere non-acceptance, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but that's not how the word is used in logic normatively. When you see, if you read a logic paper and it says deny P, reject P, disbelieve P, in logic, it is understood as acceptance of negation. If you want to use it a different way, go ahead. But I'm explaining to you, if you go to college and you take a course in logic, they're not going to be using it the way you use it. They're going to be using it the way it's normatively used.
I have taken those courses in college.
Okay, and how they use these terms.
They don't always use them the same way.
Show me the syllabus. I beg to differ with you.
I didn't keep my syllabus.
Okay, well, then you have no evidence for it.
And they don't discuss that on the syllabus.
Okay, well, every syllabus I have actually even says in here, we're going to be using atheism this way in the positive case. I actually have a few. I can find them for you another time. But
syllabi, I mean, syllabi that I have are mostly just schedules.
Okay,
we don't really cover any.
Like I said,
material.
I've shown that the way disbelief is and I've cited sources. I haven't seen anything you've cited besides, I mean, I don't know why you think disbelief means what it is, even though Rutgers disagrees with you. G. Moore would disagree with you. I don't know. But anyway, so what's your again? You haven't shown that I'm wrong on anything yet. I'm still waiting to figure out what I'm wrong on.
So I guess.
Go ahead, Snake. I didn't hear what you said.
P.B. Clatour interprets denial as mere lack of belief in the assertion that God exists.
Okay, good for him. So do you. And you could do that. Like I said, nobody can stop you, but that's not normative.
Let's see. Charles Bradlaugh says the atheist does not say there is no God. He says, I know not what you mean by God. I am without the idea of God. The word God to me conveys no clear or distinct affirmation. I do not deny God, because I cannot deny that of which, by its affirmer, is so imperfect is unable to define it to me.
Yeah, that's a stipulative thing, sure. There's a billion stipulative definitions of uses.
Mm-hmm.
So what? Oppie says atheism is the belief that God doesn't exist. If you're going to compare, point by point, I mean, Oppie is a philosopher in the field. He says atheism is the belief that God does not exist. You think that's wrong?
Only if he doesn't stipulate that it's the positive sense. I think he's being unclear.
I think he's being very clear,
Since
because
there are
these
millions
are
of
normative
people
usages.
who use the word atheist as an umbrella term.
I get that. Well, anyways, I mean, whether you accept as normative or not at this point, whatever. Let's move on to something else. People can go look. The evidence is out there. But what have you shown? Give me another thing you think I'm wrong on, because you haven't shown that I'm wrong on that. You just literally haven't.
So if that's being cited 57 times to show that it's wrong, how come they're not
citations?
How come they're not citing?
One second.
How come they're not citing Oppie to show that it's right? How come they're only citing him twice?
Irrelevant. You can cite people and actually, hey, look, I'm citing this paper to show that it's wrong.
Yeah, but if
I don't care about citations.
If Oppie is an authority in the field, then he should be cited alongside.
I mean, a lot of
these other ones that they're critiquing.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing he did was called Atheism, Agnosticism. It was only 2017. It was a PDF. Okay, but I mean, who cares about citations? Absolutely irrelevant. It doesn't change anything about the academic standing.
It changes the relevancy of it, in the field. If 57 more philosophers are talking about this subject than yours,
how do you know why they're citing them? How do you know that they're citing them not to?
I can assume that they're all trying to refute him, but how come they aren't? How come we don't see similar numbers for your sources, which are apparently more authoritative, which should be cited the same amount of times?
Because people aren't arguing against them as much. The reason these other papers like Flew is cited because Flew was rejected most of.
No, but you need to cite them both. If you're
you don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you're going to say this is wrong, you're going to have to say who's
not
wrong.
To
cite who's right.
Normative. I think you have a fundamental misunderstanding of the words, how they're typically used.
Well, if you're critiquing something.
Well, that's something that, like, again, if you could speak science, you need to learn the language of science. Philosophy is no different. Okay. Flew's paper is heavily cited because it's critiqued so much, because he didn't even believe his own argument. He became a deist. That's the reason why his paper cited a lot, because it was the academic community said, no, this is kind of bogus. That's why it's heavily cited. But even Flew says atheism is the belief that God does not exist as being normal, as being the most used. He wanted to be changed. But go ahead. Find something else that you think I'm wrong on, like in the Duke debate. I still don't have any idea what you've demonstrated I'm wrong on in my logic.
Because if they're using the disambiguation positive or negative, then atheism is a part of both.
I still don't know what
negative.
I'm not
negative
following
atheism
you.
Is atheism.
But what's the sufficient condition? What differentiates positive from negative atheism? What is this? What is this? The line of demarcation that makes one more sufficiency than the other? What is it?
We're on the same page about that.
Okay, there you go then. Okay.
One sec. Just want to let people. I'll let you guys keep going. Sorry for interrupting, but do want to let people know, and you guys as well, that we'll be going into the Q&A in about 5 minutes.
All right.
Okay.
And by the way, oh, never mind. It's fine. But okay, so we've established the sufficient condition. Positive atheism holds its sufficiency as the belief. Weak atheism holds the sufficiency of merely not believing. Right?
And so I wanted to get to this point where there's a paper called The Anti-Atheist Bias in the United States, and that studies whether the religious community basically can distinguish between lack of belief and those who positively assert that there is no God, and they have the exact same bias. So any attempt to fence it is just pointless. You're going to be seen as part of the atheists anyway.
That's not correct. I don't know what I did with it, but I just recently read a paper on demographics where they actually separate agnostics from atheists for that very reason, for demographic purposes.
I'm sure they separate it for demographic purposes, but this paper is looking at an non-theist bias.
Okay, but that's irrelevant. I mean, we're trying to establish that agnostic and atheism are vastly different positions, as normatively held in philosophy, are we not? That's the whole reason for all this.
They're understood to be the same thing by the religious community.
No, they're not.
They're understood to be the same thing in...
I know a lot of people in the religious community
would give you
grief for that.
I'm sure there are people who disagree. That's why they argue.
Okay, but I'm not understanding your argument here. If demographically wise, they still separate atheism and agnostics, and logically they're different.
You're trying to claim that there's this one overwhelming usage when it's not overwhelming.
It actually is in academia. And by the way, if you do this experiment, Snake,
Then
go out and talk to a random person and say, look, what is an athist? And they're going to say an atheist is somebody who believes that God does not exist. Or more specifically, you can say, look, do you hold that atheism is somebody that believes God does not exist or do not? They'll almost always, in my experience, tell you that there's somebody who believes. Almost ubiquitously around the world. Now, again, that's anecdotal. I get that, right?
Yeah, because if you do that same experiment with atheists, they're going to say lack of belief.
Yeah, in the atheist communities. But I don't use that definition. Do I have to?
Well, you just called them the atheist communities. So
yes, but do I have? But I respect their
contend,
usages, right? But
you
do
have
I
to
have to use it
contend
for
with
myself?
this. But it's creating confusion, which is why there's more utility.
Let me make this very clear, Snake. Are you saying that I prescriptively have to use a weaker definition because these groups use it?
I'm saying that you should probably qualify and clarify.
That's not my answer. Okay, please just answer the question. Do you advocate that I have to use their weak definitions?
No, what I'm advocating for is that you should use a qualifier.
Awesome. So
because that makes it clearer.
Well, no, but if I don't hold to the weak definition, then I don't need to clarify because normatively atheism is the positive case. This has been well established in philosophy.
Then everyone has to memorize how.
That's my argument against weak atheism, dude. They're making it more confusing, not me.
Hold on.
They are.
Just to hear that last point, what were you saying, Snake?
Then I have to. I mean, it's easy in your case because you're known for this, but if you don't clarify, then I have to memorize how you're going to use it. Unless you're going to use a qualifier.
Yeah, but again,
so I say positive and negative atheism.
All right, let me ask you this though. Let's say me and a philosopher are having a conversation, okay? And we're talking about atheism, right? We both understand and we're both using it in the positive case, okay? Grant that so far? Do you have a problem with that?
Why would you need to clarify that it's in the positive sense?
Because if I say the word atheist to my interlocutor, and he is going to interpret that I'm using atheism in the positive case. Okay, is that cool so far?
Not necessarily.
If he's a philosopher and we've already pre-established atheism in the positive case, let's say we've already pre-established. You okay with that?
If you're one of the philosophers you like, but there are plenty who don't.
That's not answering my question. I don't know why you make things so difficult. If I'm talking to somebody, right, who's a philosopher, and I say, look,
philosophers agree.
But I don't care about them right now. I'm talking about the interlocutor that I'm having. If I'm talking to a specific individual and we both agree on terms that atheism is going to be used in our conversation as the positive case, do you have a problem with that?
No.
Okay, great. Now, if somebody like you jumps into the conversation, which happens frequently, and says, hey, you, Steve, you and this other person, you're straw manning atheism. That's not what atheism is. Atheism is only a lack of belief. Do you not see a problem there? Because this happens daily, just about. Are those people wrong to do that? Because they are. Are they not? Because we're not talking about it the way they're using the term. We're having a more academic level discussion. They jump in and say, you guys are both wrong. You're straw manning atheism. Atheism is only one thing. It's a lack of belief. You've seen it all the time. What do you do? What do you tell those people?
I would tell them that they're missing some context, but I wouldn't tell them that they're not being academic about it.
Well,
because it is academic
but
to distingush between negative and positive atheism.
But would you tell them that, look, there's nothing wrong with the usages Steve and the other person are using? I mean, this is why under those usages, I'm not atheist, I'm agnostic, right? I mean, you do grant that, would you not?
You can agree to any terms you want. I'm fine with that.
Thank you. And by the way, that's my position as well. Have these groups use any usages they want, right? I don't care. I will explain they do lead to category errors, right? Because I think that they do. Because how do you have a theological and cognitivist? What does that go into? It can't be theist, it can't be atheist. But it literally nullifies their position, right? Because they're neither. They don't think either group has any cogent meaning to it, right? So if it has no cognitive or cogent meaning, they can't be either one. It ruins their position because the theological and cognitivist says, hey, both these groups, nonsensical. I'm neither of them. But you're saying, oh no, it must be one. That's a category error. But you can use these usages all you want. All I've asked is let me use the more academic usages, the more normative academic usages, and be on my merry way. I mean, according to those usages, I am not an atheist, and I don't know why people insist that those usages don't even exist. I've had people tell me those usages are wrong. Like, actually tell me they're wrong.
I'm saying that it's more academic to use the qualifiers.
Whatever. Let's say that you use a
And-
qualifier. Again, am I wrong to use atheism in a positive case?
Not necessarily, as long as you say that it's positive atheism. Or
Whatever.
clarify it
I
in
don't think
some
you need a
way.
qualifier, you know. But you agree though, if I'm talking to somebody and we have already established positive case, there's no problem with that. And for an atheist to come in and say, look, you've got to be theist or atheist, and we're like, we're not using it in that schema. Do you have a problem with that?
No.
Okay,
Just
there you go.
with
Thank you.
claiming
There we go.
that you have the monopoly on the academic usage.
Whatever, that's fine. But I'm just saying that if I and my interlocutor have decided that we are not using the schema that you use because we think that it has problems, we think it leads to epistemic issues and category errors and absurdities and special pleading possibly, and we have all these arguments why these weak definitions are poor, and we don't use it that way. We're using like in a science conversation, we're using more of a more precise language, and somebody jumps in and says, well, you guys are strawmanning atheism. That's nonsense. Would you agree?
I'm going to just quick jump in and let you know if one of you would like to defer to the other and letting them have the last word, that would be excellent. Otherwise, in about a minute.
Let me answer that question, then he can have the last word and we have Q&A.
Do I have a problem with if you agree to terms? No.
Okay, thank you.
The problems arise when you claim that you have the academic monopoly.
Well, that's not my claim. But okay, go ahead.
Okay.
All right, have
We
your
are
last word.
going to jump into these questions. Thanks so much,
Well,
everybody.
he has last word. Let him have his last word.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, I would just like to say that I don't think there is a category error when you use the weak sense, because the when you look at it epistemically, it's not the question about whether God exists or not is not symmetrical. So that's why I say that the even or odd gumball analogy is a terrible analogy because that is a symmetrical problem. Whether you believe there is an odd or an even number of gumballs, it's the same epistemic choice on both sides. But when you're dealing with the existence of something, merely lacking evidence of it or lacking a good argument for it is good enough reason to reject that argument or to reject that proposition. Because
Short and pithy.
the best analogy for that is the teapot orbiting around the sun. I don't have to tell you that I believe that there's no teapot orbiting around the sun. If you can't tell me there is none, then everyone who doesn't believe that's in the same category.
Gotcha. We are going to go into Q&A. I appreciate you giving the last word to Snake, Steve, and we will be jumping right into these questions, folks. Thanks so much for being here. Want to remind you, if you're listening and you're like, more, you can hear more. Just go down to the description where I've put these gentlemen's links. So with that, thanks so much for your super chat from Steven Nasty Guy Steen, as he likes to be called.
That troll.
Says, that's right. Our benevolent troll says Steve is James's father-in-law. Yes,
I'm related to more people than I realize, I guess.
I think that would that mean that Tom and I think that means Tom and I are married. Yes. This, by the way,
not creepy
folks,
at all.
Want to let you know, folks. Tom Jump, Steve McRae. It's happening this month, and it's going to be extra spicy because
under certain conditions, you have to make those things happen.
Don't
first.
worry.
All right, I trust you, buddy.
It's going to be.
I'm happy to have a T jump anytime, man. I mean, yeah, I'm okay with that.
It's going to be special, folks. It's happening this month. It's going to be different from what you might expect. You might expect the one-on-one, but it might not quite be that. So, Thanks, Steven Steen. Nasty guy, Steve. The sinister.
Nasty Steven Steen.
The sinister porpoise. Thanks for your super chat. Said, let's see. Can Steve do the and or truth tables?
You know what's funny is I actually was just doing the truth tables last night. There's a thing called For All of X that starts doing truth tables. I don't really have them memorized. I mean, I was doing like material condition last night, which was basically you have P implies Q is always true unless the consequent is false, right? So and is always only true if you both have the antecedent and the consequent true or false. I mean, I could probably figure them out. I don't have them memorized because why? But I used to work with building and logic. I used to work with electronic gates. But I think that if you people want to go find your Boolean logic, go get this thing called for all of X, because if you go to the natural logic checker, it basically tells you how to use that natural logic checker, but it gives you the truth tables for or and exclusive or. But yeah, I don't really have it memorized off the top of my head. I don't really need to, but I mean, I could if I really had to, I guess. So, yeah, whatever.
Gotcha. And
I know most of them. I mean, but
thank you, Steve. In his spare time, before he goes to bed, for fun, he does logic tables. So very exciting life over there.
Yeah, well, mainly or an exclusive or, the difference there, right? You know, it's because exclusive or is or would mean it's still true if both of them are true. One of them is true, the other one's false. But if they're both false, then it's not the case. That's like exclusive or versus inclusive. But yeah, who memorizes these things? You just kind of intuitively know them when you're doing logic, I guess, anymore.
Okay, now you've taken it too far. Thanks to your super chat from Steven Steen. It says Dawkins is to philosophy as Hovind is to science.
Agreed.
Jeez. Bildo Baggins, thanks for your super chat, says, Steve, if your opinion was correct, it would be easier to convince people. Then they say, but you have been on this lost ship for years and a small crew to back you.
How many hundreds of atheists have sent me messages thanking me for having them understand this properly now? Hundreds, so it's been a lot of people. So I have made an influence. I've had people go back to college to study philosophy because of this. I mean, I started a new show with Dr. Fuzz Rana because they like my opinions. They like my arguments. And so, I mean, people can say that I haven't had a huge influence, but I don't have a huge audience either. But I got to tell you, if you think the logic's wrong, show the logic is wrong. Any atheist activist out there that says I'm wrong, they need to show that the logic is wrong. And then nobody has yet to do that. I was on with Landon Kurt Knoll the other night, who's an expert in Boolean logic. He's like, go ahead. Where's the problem with this logic? A friend of mine who has a master's degree on my Facebook page said, I've reviewed this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the logic. So if somebody says I'm wrong, like Snake says I'm wrong with the logic, he needs to show the logic's wrong. And I don't know if you advocate for that. Snake, do you say that my logic is wrong when I use my logical proofs? Is there any, is it invalid?
I mean, for example, like I don't have your syllogism right here, but basically I was trying to get to, like, the reason I called you an atheist was you reject at least one God.
That's atheistic, not atheist. That's global atheism versus
short
local.
And pithy here, so
atheism.
we can get back to the question.
Well, I just want to know, does he think my logic is wrong? That's my only question. Yes, is a yes or no?
Yeah, and like one reason why is theism is accepting at least one God.
All right,
and
well,
so
that's
atheism,
semantics.
If you reject at least one God, then you're on the side of atheism.
No, you're not. That's just nonsense.
We got Snake's answer. Josiah Hansen, thanks for your super chat, who says, Steve is a very pleasant pheasant. This is fun. Thumbs up. Next up.
Who's that from?
Josiah Hansen.
Josiah, okay. All right. Thanks, Josiah.
Stupid Horror Energy, thanks for your super chat. She strikes again. She says, let's get to the category errors.
I would explain that the theological cognitivist can't be theist or nor can they be atheist. If you need more understanding of that, go watch Ozzy and I explain it in detail on my channel.
Gotcha. And Movie Theory, thanks for your super chat, who says McRae is, in all caps, dominating. Sorry, weak McRae haters. Okay, apparently you've got
I have a lot of those. Yeah, but you know what?
You've got a white
None of them have a
knight.
logical proof against me that we can look at, do they? Shocker.
Next up, Nate Brody. Thanks for your super chat. Says, Snake, was there a study done over 10 years?
I thought I cited it. Even today, however, there is no clear academic consensus as to how exactly the term should be used.
I agree with that.
And that was from Boulevant, I believe.
Yeah, that was from Boulevant. Yeah, in Oxford's Handbook of Atheism. I read this stuff, Snake. I mean, I'm well familiar with the literature. And I agree with that statement. This is, again, there's a difference between consensus and normativity.
Next up, Gareth Spears. Thanks for your super chat, who said, why you get so worked up over this topic, Steve?
Well, I mean, it's like anything else. Look, I mean, would atheists want people to go around calling them theist? And by the way, if you accept weak atheism as the sufficient condition for atheism, you must allow a theist to allow the sufficient condition of be you lack a belief that gods don't exist, or else that is special pleading. That's my weak atheism special pleading argument. Somebody coined it WASP the other day because it stings. I have yet to have a refuter for that, or a refutation for that, a defeater. There's a portmanteau right there. But yeah, I have nobody's shown that logic to be wrong. Everybody who's reviewed it that knows logic says this is logically correct as follows. That's a whole different argument that if one of these days Snake or anybody else wants to challenge on, I'm happy to do so. But it's simply basic logic. I mean, if you allow for one, you have to allow for the other, or it is special pleading by definition of special pleading.
Well,
Gotcha.
all
Let's
I can
see.
tell from that is you're saying that weak
Hold on
theists are
one sec.
theists.
Just to be sure we don't gang up on Steve, that super chat was targeted at him, so I do want to make sure that we don't go too far down the rabbit hole on that. Sigifredo Sarabia, thanks for your super chat, who said, argument from, quote, nah and burden shifting.
I see that a lot I see that a lot actually, yes.
Who is he referring to, though?
Well, I see it all the time, so I assume I know him, and I'm assuming that he's actually referring to the other side, that they just basically stick their fingers in the air and go, oh, Steve's wrong by fiat. But I tell you what, where's your logical proofs, guys? Where's your logic here? I mean, I've given my arguments in logical form that logicians have said this is valid. Where's your guys's that they can look at and see if it's valid or
If
not?
it's targeted at the other side, we'll give Snake a chance to respond, and then we'll move on to the next one. Go ahead, Snake.
Sure.
Well, the logic just depends on what premises you use. So if you use a certain definition, then you can make it valid logic.
That's not how logic works.
It might not
man.
be sound.
That's not how logic
Hold on.
works.
The super chat,
Yes.
according to you, Steve, was targeted at Snake, so we've got to let him finish.
That's fine.
All done, Snake?
Yeah, I thought that was,
You got it. And next up, thanks for your super chat, Caleb, or Caleb, as he sometimes likes to be called, says, do a debate on immigration for Cinco de Mayo. It's very un-PC of you, Caleb. Caleb, thanks for your other super chat, who says, both debaters lost. Oh, snap. Man.
Well, when I see those logical arguments coming in, I'll look at them. But until then, nobody's provided one.
Josiah Hansen, thanks for your super chat, who says, would Snake be so willing to tell someone how they identify themselves is wrong on other matters, such as orientation? Steve is agnostic, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Gotcha.
If it doesn't meet the definition,
Oh,
and
so
then
you're prescriptivist. Okay.
if it does, that's how logic works. So if you say this X equals whatever definition, then you can hold whatever
not how definitions work, man.
conditions. If you're agreeing to that, every syllogism has to have definitions.
Next up,
So
don't worry, we've got one for you,
Can I have one
Steve.
follow-up?
Well,
One quick follow-up.
this
I
one's
swear it'd
for
be
you,
10
Steve.
seconds.
I've got to
10
give
seconds.
him a follow-up then, too, because it was
That's
targeted.
fine. He can have the follow-up.
Wasn't that
Yeah,
one
that's fine.
targeted at him? So
I
if
just
you
have
want to do
one
it, it's
quick
got to be
question.
short and pithy, Steve.
Pithy. Do dictionaries define words prescriptively or just describe usages? That's it. That's all I want to know.
Got you.
They describe it, and so
There you go. That's not prescriptive. Thank you. Go ahead.
So if it's describing a certain usage, if what we're looking at doesn't meet those conditions of the definition, then you can't hold to
That's
that.
prescriptive.
Okay, we have to. The super chat's geared
Go ahead.
toward it's targeting Snake, so I got to give him the last word on this
Uh-huh.
one.
No, I'm not talking about prescribing a certain definition. I'm just saying whatever definition is being used, if you don't meet the criteria of that definition, then that usage of that word is not appropriate.
Don't worry, I've got one for you, Steve. Your
Okay.
dearest friend Nate Brody sends in another super chat. Steve, I love you, buddy. You can't let him get to you, Steve. Okay. They say Oxford looked at 10 years of papers and said there is no consensus.
I
If it
agree
is-
there's no
Hold on.
consensus.
They said if it is normative, then it is consensus.
No.
Consensus. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Then they said Steve has been refuted by Oxford.
No, he hasn't. There's a huge difference between consensus, right? Like if I say that the scientific theory of gravity is general relativity by consensus, right? There's a difference between that and saying if I say the word reject is normatively used in logic to mean negation, acceptance negation, that doesn't mean there are not weaker versions of that, but they're less used. So there's no consensus of how the word ought to be used, right? There's no consensus there. but there is still a normative understanding when you see this word, how it should be interpreted. That's not consensus, that's normativity. There's a huge difference in terminology there.
Next up, thanks for your super chat, Josiah Hansen, who says normative does not equal consensus in any manner.
Correct.
Let's see. So I think that's targeted towards you, Snakeroo. If you want to give a response.
Yeah, I still don't understand how he's made any distinguishing factors between
I've explained it, I think, in great
detail.
detail.
Standard
actually.
of the norm. And
yeah, I think I've explained it in great detail.
Hold on, I gotta let Snake respond.
The consensus usage of biological evolution is the normative definition of biological evolution, or gravity, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, in that case, they're the same thing. I mean, in that case, those usages are normative and consensus, but they don't have to be. You can have a consensus of something, but in some circle, like what is normative in the ACA for the use of atheism, right? It's not the normative in that case, right? Is that it is the lack of belief. Although in academia, there's no consensus for it. There's clearly a difference between consensus and normative, because you can have a group that has a different usage, which is normative, doesn't affect the consensus, because there is no consensus of which one you should use. That's what they're talking about. There's no consensus in philosophy is which one, has by fiat, a correct usage. It only explains these both are used more. It is more normative that when you see this word is used this way, that's the standard. Even Cambridge says it's the standard. That's all. I mean, but who cares? Whether it's normative or not doesn't matter. They do exist. I hold by one, you hold by the other. As long as I don't call you, if you don't.
I do have to give Snake the last word on this. This super chat was directed at him.
Okay.
Yeah, and it depends on the scope of what your group you're looking at. But then Oxford says the standard is different.
Movie Theory, thanks for your super chat. Don't worry, Movie Theory is white knighting for you, Steve. They say all the McRae haters butthurt because they know he won. So you've got a fan out there, Steve. Next up, Angry Roach, thanks for your super chat, said, what does Steve mean when he says, quote, normative definition?
I've literally been over that how many times? But here's Oxford right here, so I can just share it with you. Now, this actually shows up here. And yes, I've read my own sources. Okay, I read my stuff. This talks about there's an absence of belief in gods. This is, again, an etymological reason. This is what Bullivant argues. Bullivant's paper is arguing from etymological roots, right? But it says also that belief that there are no gods, arguably the most popular current usage, which would be normative, would it not be? This is actually saying that this two, not one, up here is the normative. That arguably the most popular current usage. Would you agree that this is Oxford?
That he also says it's the generally agreed upon serviceable scholarly definition of the word atheism is lack of belief.
No, who says that?
Bullivant.
No, Bullivant says there's no consensus.
Or sorry, that's no, I think that is Bullivant.
Yeah, Bullivant literally in his paper says there's no consensus on this. He prefers the weak case because he thinks it's more in line with the etymological roots. Did you read his paper, or are you just taking shots from it? Are you just taking notes from it, or do you actually read his full paper? Be honest.
Yeah, I read it.
Okay, because if you read his paper, then you would know why he's arguing the way he is. He's arguing from etymology.
Next up, we have to go to the next super chat.
Go ahead.
Stupid Whore Energy, thanks for your super chat. She strikes again. Now she says, is there such a thing? And then once you're, if we can return to the good old screens where we get to see your...
Yeah, I just want to show one more thing for my evidence. Cambridge Dictionary of Philosophy. A stricter sense denotes a belief that there is no God. This use has become the standard use. There you go.
Gotcha. Next up, our dearest friend, Stupid Whore Energy, always a little sass. She says,
love her.
Is there such a thing as lack of belief in no God? If not, why is there no symmetry in these terms?
Who's she asking that to?
I don't know.
I said there was no there was a lack of symmetry.
Yeah, there's a lack of symmetry if you use the weak case, because the ism relationship, atheist to atheism, really only has a symmetry in the positive case.
Well, there's a lack of symmetry epistemologically, because you can say something is not true or you lack the belief in it simply by lacking any proof or argument of the positive.
Okay. don't know how to answer the question, but I think to answer her questions, the ism relationship has a symmetry when you have it in a positive case. If you go read Use of Reason by Dr. Malpass's blog, he explicitly points out the difference between the ism and the ism, or the is-it, the ism and the ist breaking when you start using these weaker conditions.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for your super chat from Nate Brody. He says the more a paper is cited, the more credible. Milik equals 0.
Malik.
You
can't even get his name right.
Come on, geez. You got to cut me down like that? All right, go ahead.
But I mean, well, did he get it wrong? You. But citations, again, are relevant. An argument stands on its own merit. Everything that Malik has put in his paper. By the way, did you read Malik's paper, Snake?
I read some of it.
Okay. His paper's in line with what Martin says, too, Michael Martin. And Michael Martin advocates for the weak condition. So if you go read Michael Martin, they're in line with each other. They're not expressing different things.
Yeah, I mean, most of them talk about the difference between negative and positive atheism. So I'm saying that that's a normative to distinguish between them.
Yeah, Steve. Okay, moving on to the next one. Thanks for your super chat from, let's see. I do want to be fair, though, I have to give Steve the last word on that. If you want to give a really, because that was
I don't know where to go with that, man.
Frustrated Atheist, thanks for your super chat, said, this should be on the utility of the definitions.
I agree. And I love that discussion. And I think that's unfortunately a discussion. I had that discussion with David Silverman a couple of weeks ago. Go check out Caffeine Corner on my channel. Dave and I, who I get along with exceptionally well, even though I disagree with him philosophically wise. He's backed off quite a bit. I think he's changed a little bit. But we started talking about utility arguments for that very reason, because the reason why atheists want to change positive normative case to be the negative is for demographics. This, again, they put this out. David Silverman put it out in Finding God, and he's even said this. Pam Whistle from American Atheist, their editor-in-chief, has told me explicitly they do it for demographic reasons. They're not a philosophical organization. Don't quote them as such. Her words. They have two goals, is what Pam Whistle told me. Normalize the use of atheism, and to increase the number of atheists for demographic reasons for voting, and to get more members for their group. That's what she told me.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Let's see. I think that one was for Steve. I don't know.
Well, I think that it's more than just demographics. It's because there's an epistemological approach to this, whereas you can't be omniscient and know that there are no gods at all. But most, if not all, agnostics are denying most gods.
I don't know what that has to do with tea in China. Well, I don't know why you confuse local and global, and I'm sorry, but you just throw the stuff around like a blender, and then whatever comes out. And I don't understand what the hell you're talking about half the time, Snake. What does that have to do with anything?
Got to keep it short.
I'm atheistic towards certain gods. I say I believe certain gods don't exist. That's not atheism. That's atheistic.
Okay, let's give Snake a quick chance to say what your question. I think you asked Steve was, what does that have to do with anything? What does it have to do with anything, Snake?
Well, I was referring to the utility of it. It's better to make more, have more qualifiers, and it's better to have a more honest epistemological approach.
I don't think. I think that if you thought that way, you would adopt my schema.
Keep moving. Rocks are agnostic. Thanks for your super chat. Said, why did Steve say that rocks are agnostic?
I've never advocated rocks are agnostic or atheism. Where that came from, I had a hangout with a very dishonest lawyer out there. And I was doing internal critique based upon his axioms, what would lead to. Bionic Dance advocates that rocks are atheist. I've for years told her she's wrong on that, philosophically speaking. I think it's ludicrous to say rocks are atheist. And I try to explain to this dishonest lawyer that, hey, to be agnostic, you must suspend judgment, which rocks cannot do, right? That is an active dispensational action, right? This is something that I have to actually consciously do. Rocks do not have the ability to do that. They cannot be agnostic. Go read Suspending Judgment by Dr. Jane Friedman, New York University.
All right. Thanks so much.
But he argued, well, logically so, they're this, and this. Yes. And I said, look, in your schema, if you want to argue logically that rocks are agnostic, whatever. But that was not a debate. That was a hangout that I was just trying to explain to him the concept by which, by the way, Matt, Dr. Alex Malpass told him he's inept in logic, that he's wrong. Bert Poole told him he's absolutely wrong. And that dishonest lawyer had admitted to me that I was right in all this. And that the only reason why he continues with it is because he was told to fight me to the death on it. That's it. I have it in writing that he has actually said my logic is correct on this. Other people have been wrong on this. This was years ago, but he still continues on about it. Rocks are not atheist. Rocks are not agnostic. I have had a blog for years, and I've said the most we can say about a rock is that it's not theist because of a category. Yeah. Because if you have one category, you have to have a complement set in the universal domain. You can restrict that universal domain to just people, but in the what's called the UD in philosophy, when you have all of X, you have a UD, the universal domain, you have theist or not theist. Anything in the set that's not in the set of theist must, by complement set, be in the set of not theist. That was my argument to him. But yeah, rocks are not atheist or agnostic. That's ridiculous.
Let's see. I do, forgive me, Snake, but just because it was directed at Steve, I got to keep going. Gabriel K, thanks for your super chat, said, Steve wrote, oh, Gabriel K, they're coming after you, Steve. They said, Steve wrote a paper? LOL, dude. You wrote a crap blog.
Well, actually, I haven't written published papers, but I wrote papers in college. I mean, I've had a 4 years of college, man. I mean, I did have to write papers, but I mean, were they published? No. But yeah, I mean, my blog is not published, but it's read by people that are published, and they don't have a problem with logic. Not one expert has shown that my logic is incorrect.
Gotcha. One. Thank you very much. Appreciate your super chat from Dan, who said, Steve, you still need to define the word anyway. They said you need to define the word. I think they mean atheism.
I've explained how I use the word.
Gotcha.
And has multiple definitions. This is my argument against American Atheist and Aaron Ra. They say there's only one definition, only one correct definition. These are their words. I say that's incorrect. There's multiple definitions. I use the more sensu stricto. They use the more sensu lato. Everybody's happy, but they've argued, no, you can't. Steve can't do that. Steve's wrong. There's only one definition. This is their argument. They're prescribing usages, not me.
Gotcha. And Superdora Energy strikes again. She says, the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy notes, quote, if atheism is defined as a psychological state, then no proposition can count as a form of atheism because a proposition is not a psychological state. I think she's challenging you, Snake.
Challenging me?
Well, it's certainly not helping your case. I think it's meant to be a challenge at you.
Yeah, how do you answer that?
Well, if it's not a proposition, then it can't be what Steve's saying it is. Then it can't be gods do not exist.
I don't think you're answering the question, man. I mean,
I'll
make it easy for him. Look, because I know what she's asking. She's absolutely right. If it's a psychological state, then you can't put propositional to say that atheism is true or false. You can say theism is true or false if you want to make it a proposition that God exists. But if all of a sudden you say, look, atheism is no longer a proposition, it's just a psychological state, there's no argument to be tested for that. Right? That's why they don't have atheism as a psychological state normatively. It's a propositional state. That's what it's usually understood as, because you can't test psychological states by argumentation. You can only test propositions. That's it. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. And that's why.
Let's give him a chance to respond now. Yeah. I've got a hot date in 2 minutes. Okay,
well,
dinner with a friend.
See, this is the problem, is because psychological states there's a whole spectrum of them, and you can reject or not believe theism for the reasons that it doesn't have enough proof, it hasn't met the burden of proof, or you can go further.
Gotcha.
There are many steps on the way to denying all gods.
Next up, Nate Brody, thanks for your super chat, says, Steve, do you lack belief in a god? If you do, you are an atheist. If you reject that you are a prescriptivist, you prescribe only one meaning.
That's incorrect. I don't prescribe anybody else's usages. I'm allowed to have the usages I want to use for myself. Prescriptivism is when I say you must use the usages I use. I've never done that. You can use anybody uses you want. They're prescribing it to me. By saying that I'm atheist, that is prescriptive behavior. They're saying I have to follow that weak condition prescription definition. If I don't, then I'm just being irrational to them, which is to me is very dishonest, right? Because that is what I'm saying. I'm an agnostic, philosophically speaking. I'm not atheist or theist, right? That is my philosophical position. To say otherwise is intellectually dishonest, straight up. I don't think there's even a debate on that. That is pure dishonesty. I don't prescribe anybody else's label. I don't go around saying you're not a real atheist, you're an agnostic. I've never done that, contrary to what anybody has ever said. I don't expect them to do it to me.
Gotcha. And Marooned Dreams, thanks for subscribing. Just saw that. Glad to have you here. Very excited. And next one, appreciate your super chat from our dearest friend. Dan says, Snake was right in this debate. You got a fan out there, Snake.
Yeah, how?
Stupid Whore Energy strikes again, says, I want more, Daddy. Okay, gosh. Jason Bourne, very honored to have you here. Thanks so much for your super chat. Says, Nate Brody refuted Steve. That's why he is scared.
He never did. And I have it in writing that he agreed with me on all this from 8 years ago. The only reason he does this is because he's told to fight me on it.
Gotcha. Nate Brody.
And by the way, I also have comments I've left on his videos that he used to have saying how dishonest he was, how he had false edits, and he took me out of context willfully. Because I can tell you right now, I have never advocated the position that rocks are atheist, nor have I ever advocated the position that rocks are agnostic. I've done an internal critique about a hangout 3 years ago that he still, I guess, from what I understand, puts it out there like Steve says rocks are agnostic. Anybody who's watched me knows that's bullshit. I mean, anybody who knows my positions, that's ludicrous.
Gotcha. Thanks for your super chat from Nate Brody. He says, weak atheist equals necessary, not sufficient. And then in parentheses says, refuted.
How's that refuted? Snake agreed that Snake even agreed that the sufficient condition for positive atheism is the belief. So negative atheism is necessary, but not sufficient to be strong atheism. Snake agreed with that. I don't think that he disagreed, did he? Right? Snake, you agreed with that?
That you have to lack belief in a God in order to believe that there are no gods?
It's a necessary condition, but not sufficient in positive atheism.
Yeah, because there's more criteria to positive atheism.
That's my whole. There you go. I hold to the stricter case, in which case the sufficiency isn't there for me to be an atheist. There you go. I'm not an atheist. Thank you. Finally,
there are two cases of it though.
But I'm taking the positive case. I'm taking the stricter case.
I've got to give the
all right, go ahead.
I've got to give the last word to Steve just because it was targeted at him. Christina Rain, thanks for your super chat, says, Steve, does 1 + 1 equal 2?
I believe so. Yes.
Gotcha. Thanks. Frustrated Atheist, thanks for your super chat. Says, I can talk about this. I hold no gods exist.
Okay.
Thanks for your super chat. Club says, Steve is Snake back from 20 years in the future. Gotcha. Same haircut. Okay. Thanks for your super chat.
Possibly.
Rocks are agnostic. I mean, imagine Snake. Steve is like in the YouTube community. He's like the Fabio of philosophy of religion in the YouTube community. Look at him. Do you want to look like that?
Okay.
I'll defer judgment.
Just purposely making it cringe. Okay, thanks for your super chat from putting you guys on the spot. I really enjoy you guys though. Rocks are agnostic strikes again. They're out to get you, Steve. And they say, we saw the video. We saw what you said, Steve. The only dishonest person here is you.
I've literally explained it. I have the hangout on my channel. You can watch it in its entirety.
Gotcha.
I mean, this is what I'm saying. When you dishonestly take people out of context, this is what happens. And by the way, people have watched me for years. Ask any of them. I've never advocated that rocks are atheists. I actually have said numerous times, to be atheist, you have the belief that God does not exist as sufficiency, and to be agnostic, the sufficient condition is having to evaluate it and then suspend judgment on it. If you don't know about the proposition, Graham Oppie calls that innocent. These have been my positions for 5, 6, 7 years, give or take. So when you dishonestly edit something and to make it sound like I was taking something out of context when I was doing internal critique based upon what this person was saying, that's just dishonesty. I can tell you right now, agnostics, to be an agnostic, you have to suspend judgment. Rocks don't do that. There you go. There you go. I mean, that's my position, period. Anybody says otherwise, they're just wrong.
Well, if I would say, if I could weigh in real quick, that if a rock is an atheist, a rock is also an agnostic. But if a rock is not an agnostic, then they're also not atheists. So
they're also theists at this point. I mean, it's just, if you have weak atheism, you have weak theism. You can't have one. You've got weak theism. If you accept weak atheism, you accept weak theism. So a rock would be by your, again, internal critique of yours, would be an atheist, an agnostic, and a theist. There you go. It's like that's one of my whole proofs of that too. If you accept these weak conditions, this is the implications of it.
We must
Rocks
I don't
good
accept
we must
myself.
keep moving. Marabino, thank you for your super chat, said, quote, language is our B, and evidently so is Steve McRae, unquote. Matt Dillahunty 2020. Oh, snap. Did that
Hey,
really
look.
happen?
Look, what happened? Wait, what happened in 2020?
Never mind. All right, next super chat.
Yeah. Matt Dillahunty has never shown that I'm wrong. He won't produce any logical argument
Okay, keep it
until
friendly.
he does. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks so much. I always worry because whenever somebody else's name comes up, I'm like, that's how we almost lost Hovind forever.
You did lose Hovind forever.
We might have.
Yeah,
Because
no,
I
he
let
doesn't wanna come
Professor
back.
Dave talk about him when he wasn't here.
Yeah, no, he won't come back to my channel or yours. We just we
Listen,
reached out to him the
Steve,
other day.
it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
Believe me.
Maybe. Go for it.
Keep the faith, Steven. Okay, next
God
up.
bless you, man.
Thanks for your super chat. Gabriel K says he said he wrote a paper many times. What's a paper now? Ugh, paper, ag. Welcome to the brave new age of the internet.
I've never written a published paper ever.
Thanks
I've
for your
written
super
papers in college. There's
Gotcha.
a big difference there. Yeah.
Philip, thanks for your super chat, says, Steve, to clarify, did you claim, quote, if you label someone else as an atheist, you are a prescriptivist? I don't see
I
the
don't label
logical entailment there.
Yeah, I let people label themselves if they want to call themselves atheist. But here's the thing: if they call themselves an atheist and they don't have a position on the proposition, logically speaking, that is called agnostic on the proposition. That's not a label. That's just a term in logic. I don't have a belief the other way is logically agnostic on that proposition. That's logic, right? But you don't have to accept that label. They can call themselves atheists. I've never said they can't.
Gotcha. And thanks for your super chat. Just came in. We've got another we've got Stupid Horror Energy. But first, Carmel Crunk, thanks for your super chat, says, when will Steve make a decision on God's existence?
I used to be a theist. So who knows?
Gotcha. Thanks also for your super chat from Stupid Horror Energy, who says, does Snake have any arguments against God's existence? If so, why not leave it at that and live your best life?
Leave it at not having arguments. I mean, I do have arguments. It depends on the God. That's why I'm saying that locking atheism to disbelief in all gods is a little ridiculous, because it just depends on what God we're talking about.
Okay, real quick. So you're saying that atheists that hold the belief there are no gods are ridiculous?
No, it's I'm saying that it's ridiculous to say that only those who believe all gods are false or cannot exist, only they are atheists.
No, but that wasn't my question. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. If a person believes there are no gods, you think that's justifiable?
Could be. Depends on the argument. If the argument is that there are no good arguments for any gods, then sure.
Do you hold the belief there are no
Let's
gods?
keep it short and pithy. Let's give him a chance to answer, then we'll go to the next one.
Okay.
I don't think that there are any arguments for.
That's not my question. I don't know why people dodge my questions. These are simple questions. Do you hold the belief that there are gods or not?
I am
Yes or no?
afraid we have to keep moving.
But I just want people to notice the dodges that go on in these.
Next up.
these
I'm just
things.
trying to be precise, Steve.
Marabino, thanks for your super chat, who said, thanks, James. Appreciate that, Marabino. Thanks for your support. Really do appreciate it. Caleb, thanks for your super chat, who said, enjoy your date tonight, James. No fornicating. I appreciate that. We're talking on the phone.
Or getting on video, or it didn't happen.
Dinner with a
Proof,
friend.
evidence.
Dinner
So,
alone.
we have friends.
Dinner with the Sears magazine. Okay, Nate Brody, do you guys get that joke from, you know what show that's from? This is a Simpsons reference. Nate Brody, thanks for your super chat. Uh-oh, Steve. Said video will refute Steve will be out tomorrow.
Yeah, people can make as many videos as they want. As long as you can show the logic is wrong, go for it. But he's been wrong on his logic. He had scope errors. He had misunderstandings of double negations and things of that nature. Malpass it and Pool has numerous videos exposing him as somebody who doesn't understand logic very well. That's fine. But look, I've always held the position that rocks are not atheist or agnostic. If people want to look at something that I said 3 years ago when I was doing internal critique and misrepresent it, go nuts. What the hell? Why the hell do I care? My position is rocks are not agnostic, nor are they atheist. There you go. If you want to lie about it and say that otherwise, go ahead. What's it going to do to me? Doesn't change my logic. Doesn't change my argument.
Next
I mean,
up.
if you want to be dishonest, make as many videos as you want, because I know why they make these videos. They do it for clicks. They've told me they do it for clicks. They've said the only reason we're doing this is because people want us to fight to the death.
Moving.
Their words. Go nuts. Make 1,000 videos. I don't care. I don't watch any of them. The people that watch me don't care.
We must keep moving. Maynard Saves, thanks for your super chat. Said, get a new shirt, Steve.
This shirt.
Yeah, it's a tremendous shirt. People are saying it's the best. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Learning with Suge, thanks for your super chat. Steve. Oh, Steve. Steve. You're looking serious. Okay. They say, I just wanted to support the stream, James. Also, please check out the recent videos by Nate Brody and explain the dishonesty if you can.
Go
Way
nuts.
to drag me into it, but thank you for your
Go watch
super
everything
chat.
you want to watch. Then come back and show me the logic is wrong. That's all I've said. If you think the logic is wrong, write it down. Let's evaluate it and go from there. I'm not this nonsense of these drama videos saying, well, Steve said this 3 years ago when I clearly was doing an internal critique based on what he said. And I've always said for years, never otherwise, about atheism and agnosticism. Go nuts, whatever.
Thanks for your super chat, Gabriel K, who said, clown, you referred to your blog as a paper. Done.
I corrected that. Yeah, it was a misspeak. I'm allowed to do that. It was a misspeak.
Gotcha.
I did it once in this debate. Yes.
Thanks so much. And
that's why you correct things when you make errors. Unlike other people that don't.
They're coming after you, Steve, but you know what? I appreciate your patience.
No, this is fine. This is cakewalk to me, dude. I mean, I've done this for 8 years, man. This is child's play.
Next up, Woody, thanks for your super sticker. Don't see those very often. They said the sticker says, wait for it. Next up, thanks for your super chat. XXILD says, why won't Steve debate Nate if he's so wrong?
Because I'll never talk to him ever again. Simple as that. I mean, if he has a good argument, hey, somebody else can run it, but I will never talk to that particular person ever in my life again for very specific personal reasons due to harm to me and my friends and my loved ones. Not going to ever talk to him. And he's not the only one. There's other people I will never discuss anything with ever again. I've been there, done that. I have 3 hangouts with him years ago. He's dishonest as can be. He manipulates. He absolutely lies. I don't bother with any of that. Plus, he's harmed my friends and me. He can take that in a video, put this clip in a video if he wants to. I stand by this, but that's the reason why I will not talk to certain people. He's one of them.
Next up, well, then this super chat, this next one you might appreciate this one. That's from Jason Bourne. Thanks for your super chat. Says Steve is wrong. Debate Nate or shut up.
Never going to happen. I won't. Again, look, I don't have to. I can debate whoever I want. If the people are dishonest and I don't think they're honest interlocutors or that I personally have issues with, I'm not going to ever talk to them. I have no reason to. I don't have to give people reasons why I won't associate with certain people. And I won't associate with him. I won't be in the same room with him. I won't talk to him. And I'm not the only one. There are many people that left this community and left him for these reasons. So don't ever try to get me to debate somebody that I do want to have to be even in the same room with. I find him vile. I find him to be disingenuous. I find him to be dishonest. You guys can think he's honest. I don't care. Knock yourself out. Watch his stuff. But don't put it on me. I will never debate somebody that I will not be comfortable enough to speak with ever again. And I swear to my child, I'm not going to talk to certain people. You know, on the head of my child, certain people I will always, for the rest of my life, never talk to again. That's how vile I think they are. He's one of them.
Gotcha.
Does that answer the question to me? Am I being, too vague here? And let it be persecuted by it. He's gonna be like,
so you probably won't debate him. I got that.
You think so?
But
yeah.
Balam's ass. Thanks for your super chat. They got my reference. They said James is going to Oogle Girls in Victoria's Secret catalog.
Don't we all do that?
When Mo Sizlak was being interrogated by the police in The Simpsons.
God damn. Dude, you don't need to blow our eardrums out.
Steve, this is important. Mo Sizlak was being... You're right, I'm actually clipping a little bit, maybe. But, okay, hold on. Now I can yell. I've turned it down a little bit. Mo Sizlak was being... And he was being, it's The Simpsons. All right, next one. Thanks for your super chat. Just came in. Fresh off the... Hey, where'd it go? No, this is embarrassing.
You're over clipping.
Nobody clips better than I do. Okay, thanks for your super chat from... Hold on. Oh, I'm so
It's getting
pressed.
bad.
Whoa, this is. Let's see. Okay, so Jason Bourne, thanks for your super chat, said, "Oh, jeez,
James, you got to turn that down. I'm telling you, you're killing our ears here, dude.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, you're
It's
right.
bad.
I know. I'm telling you, your audio is like 30 dB higher than it should be.
I know you're right. I don't know what it is.
Oh, there you go.
I'll just talk
Okay,
like
that's
this.
better.
Sorry, guys. You're right. I've like tried to turn my volume
I know.
down.
Steve telling the truth. I know it's weird, right? People think I'm just a liar, pants on fire. Steve kicks puppies.
I think OBS like adjusted for my turning down the volume or something, but we got a new one. Jason Bourne. Oh, geez. Come on, Jason. They said Nate got 300 subs today. So apparently Nate is getting some attention over at his channel.
That's all he wants. All he wants is subs. He'll that's all he cares about. I don't care about the subs.
Let's see.
I want to be right. I want to be in line with the literature. I want to educate. I'm not here to score points with people that don't give a fuck about me. It's just these people that have hate bonus for me, they're never going to learn anything. They're not the people that watch my stuff. The people that watch my stuff want to learn. They want to learn the topic. I guarantee it. Nobody's ever said, "Hey, look, you want to learn a bit about philosophy? Go to these other people." Nobody's ever said that. The reason being is they don't understand the topic very well.
You guys, I'm starting to edit and make these like more, what's the word I'm looking for? When they're like rated R and you bring it down to PG-13, when you dub in when the person like says the F word and then they put in like the word like spam or something just to not have the like, because you guys are being pretty hard on Steve, and I usually wouldn't read these many mean super chats to a guest, but I mean it's Steve, so
I doesn't bother.
Marabino,
let them get it out of their system over here because they're not welcome on my channel because they're just a bunch of trolls.
Marabino, thanks for your super chat, said, "I'm on fire with quotes. Better show both sides. Quote, I've been doing this for 8 years. This is child play." From Steve on dodging.
That's pretty easy.
Gotcha. Thanks for your super chat. From Carmel Crunk, thanks for your support. Said, "Can Steve ever forgive Nate?"
No.
Steve, he's right there in the live chat.
I will never forgive certain people for what they've done, ever.
Stuart Bunn, appreciate your super chat, Stuart. Said, "Why won't Steve debate Unirock?"
Same thing.
Okay.
Same reason as the other one.
Gotcha. And let me quick check in case any other ones came in. Otherwise,
you do have love to have the trolls over here, don't you?
We've got.
I mean, the hate boner they have that they have to use my name in videos all the time. But yet, all I've ever asked for is, where's the logical proof? Here you go. Where is it? I don't see it. Show us. Non-existent. They all have to use these BS games. Look at this video here and this. Where's the logic? Show me the logic wrong. I mean, here's the people that actually have said they've had scope errors and that Malpass had to point out to these people, hey, look, your logic is wrong. They admitted their logic is wrong, and now they're saying, oh, well, they're using the same argument they used 3 years ago that Malpass pointed out and Bert Poole pointed out they were wrong. And they've admitted they were wrong. I have it. But, of course, they're using this for clickbait. I get it. Have fun. Make 1,000 videos about me. Use my name. I'm thrilled that you do. I'm not around that crowd. I have nothing to do with them. I don't watch their shit. I don't care. I have my own people that subscribe to me, and they want to learn these topics, and they want to learn them to where they understand them. And I have the guests come on that know these topics, like Landon, Kurt Knoll. Watch what you want to watch. I don't care. They'll chop this up and use it to their advantage. I'm sure of that. But the people one person that learned something from this, that's the person I'm talking to.
Wait, hold on. I'm so sorry, everybody. I forgot that like OBS is doing weird stuff to my audio. And so I was yelling again. I'm so sorry. Everybody in the 99% of the live chat is like, shh, stop my ears. Okay, I'm going to be really careful. Okay, so thanks for your super chat. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for your patience. Very embarrassing. Okay, so we got that from Jason Bourne. Thanks for your super chat, who said, you would debate Warden the convicted R.
No.
Okay.
I have nothing
Maynard
to do with him.
Saves. Thanks for your super chat, said, grow up, Steve. Sure you don't want to ask Chest first. I'm confused. What does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
Must be an inside joke. I love inside jokes. One day
I do too, when I get
to be
them.
a part of one.
Yeah,
So,
I don't get it.
did you guys get that reference? It was
No.
Michael Scott. Okay, let's see. Let me see if any other new ones came in. Let's see. Thanks for your super chat from Stupid Horror Energy. Oh, I forgot. Stupid whore. I'm just going to talk like a normal human. Stupid whore energy said, the strength of philosophy is when it exposes you. Give me 1 sec. I got to read the rest. Exposes you. No. Okay. The strength of philosophy is when it exposes that you're being irrational. What is Snake's response to the category errors?
Well, I don't see any category errors. I think the category errors emerge from certain definitions, but again, that's kind of why I started with the definitions. I would love to discuss the implications of that. We didn't have time.
Gotcha. Thank
I'd
you.
love. I'd go on Steve's channel or whatever.
Sure.
Gotcha. Thanks for your super chat from our dearest friend, Gabriel K., who says, Snake, you're very patient. It truly is admirable. So, next, Steve's face. Next up, thanks for your super chat, who from Christina Rain, who says, Steve, nobody can show your logic is wrong because if they disagree with you, you block them, right?
Which is
or
weird
wrong?
because half the people that come on my channel disagree with me, and I foster disagreements. Logic is logic. I mean, if you think the logic is wrong, write it up. Anybody could use it. I'll take it and I'll get some logicians. We'll analyze it. How difficult is that? Logic is logic. It's objective. I don't block people that disagree with me. I block people that I dislike, that I think are vile, reprehensible, immoral people. Those people I don't want to have around. But if they have a good argument, anybody can use it. Have them do the logic. Somebody that I don't find to be morally reprehensible can come on my channel and we'll talk about it. I don't find Snake morally reprehensible. I haven't blocked him. He disagrees with me, so that clearly negates that narrative. I don't think he's a bad person. I think he may not understand the concepts that well, but I don't think he's an ethical person. I've gotten to know him now. He's welcome on my channel. Bring it. I mean, if he could take an argument, a logical argument that somebody else that I will not ever have anything to do with, and it's a logical argument and he wants to run it, bring it on.
Gotcha.
Bring it on. I don't understand why people think I fear that. I don't. I want that. That's what I look forward to on my channel.
Thank you. And thanks for your super chat from SoulDog69 says, Steve could take a steaming crap and have it criticized and taken out of context. These clowns are hilarious.
It does happen. That's probably not too far from the truth. Oh yeah, look, I've had a group of haters for like what, 4 years now? 4 decades. 4 years, 3-4 years. I mean, I don't know how long it's been since I left this group. There was a group that we left. Me, Reds Rhetoric, Bullinator, Dave, and a bunch of other people. We left these people because we recognized that we didn't want to be around them. Whatever the reasons are relevant. But I didn't want to be around them. They followed me around ever since. They'll continue to follow me around in perpetuity for another 4 10 years, whatever. They'll make tons of videos about me. Knock yourself out. It hasn't affected me.
Gotcha.
I don't live my life based upon these clowns who just use my name for clicks. Go ahead. I'm flattered by it.
Must keep moving. Josiah Hansen, thanks for your super chat, said, unnecessary logical proof that could show his logic wrong could fit on a single tweet. You could make your case before he could block anyway. Looks like you've got a defender out there, Steve. And then Mr. Slaughter, thanks for your super chat, says Steve has never lied. Just ask him.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, if you could find a lie that I've done on air, go ahead. I challenge you on that. I've been utterly consistent from day one. Everything I've said about the non sequitur show, I've been consistent about. Everything I've said about my arguments have been consistent. If you think I've lied, go nuts. But I got to tell you, the people out there that are criticizing me, we have shown that they've lied, demonstrably so. And we've shown they're disingenuous and dishonest in their interlocutors in having a conversation. If you want to be honest and have a conversation, that's fine. I've had these people on my channel before, right?
Okay. Next.
So, yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead, knock yourself out. If you want to call me liar for something that never happened, whatever. I think
they call you Steve McLiar. Okay.
Oh, is that what
thanks for your thanks for your super chat, Mr. Slaughter. I love you, Steve. I appreciate you being so patient. Steve, I don't know if I've ever thrown as much poop at one of our guests via the super chats. I'm vicariously throwing poop at you.
Yes, man. Hey, it's money to you, right?
You have no idea how cathartic this is.
Yes, money
Mr.
to you.
Mr. Slaughter, thanks for your super chat, says, confirmation bias, thy name is Steve.
Confirmation bias has nothing to do with logic. If the logic is right, the logic is right. If the logic is wrong, the logic is wrong. Show me the logic.
And then
That sounds like a T-Jump quote, huh?
Maynard.
I kind of like was channel T-Jump there a little bit.
Steven, your son Thomas is not here to defend himself. Maynard Saves, thanks.
That
for your
wasn't an
super chat.
insult.
I'm just teasing. Maynard Saves, thanks for your super chat. They were the one that said Steve has never lied. Just ask him. And then we just had a final super chat. I think just came in. Nate Brody said, "Stop lying about me, Steve. You were desperate."
Yeah, that's not a lie. Look, believe what you want. I don't care. I want nothing to do with the guy. He could use my name, 1,000 videos, say whatever the hell he wants. I don't care. I don't want to have anything to do with him at all, ever.
Gotcha.
Ever. He just stay, as long as he stays away from me and never gonna hang out with me, he's welcome to do anything or say anything he wants. I don't care. I don't watch his stuff. Go watch his stuff. Believe him. I don't care. It doesn't affect me and the people that I love. The people that I love, the people that I cherish, people like Chesh, Reds, and especially Sweet Heathen. That's all that my consideration cares about. That's it. That's the only things that matter to me in my life. As long as they're not being affected by these people, I don't care.
Thank you. Bent Hovind, no relation. Thanks for your super chat.
And Bullinator, I like that.
Said Steve is an agnostic in perpetuity. Next up.
May change one day. Who knows?
I think, let's see. I think that was it. So thanks so much, everybody, for your questions. Brian Stevens, did you have a question? You usually have a question. Did I miss it? But I want to say, folks, reminder, I have put the links of our guests in the description box. So that way, if you're like, I have a hankering for more, please, you can get more. There's plenty more where that came from at their links below.
Plenty more.
And want to say thanks so much, folks, just for hanging out with us. It's always fun, and it's fun because of you, folks. We really do appreciate that. And then someone said that a super chat came from Bent Hovind. I thought I read that one, though. Did I miss it?
I don't know.
Yeah, they said as the perpetuity one.
Yeah, it's perpetuity one.
So yes, do really appreciate you, folks. Want to let you know, whether you be Christian, atheist, agnostic, or one of the many strange creatures in between, we hope you feel welcome here, no matter what side of the position you're on. So with that, I want to say a huge thanks to our guests for being with us, spending their time with us. A lot of channels would love to have them. And also, thanks for letting them take a little bit of heat from peeps in the live chat.
And by the way, bring it on. I do hangouts all the time. I talk about these things. If you got a good argument, don't want to disagree with me, come on. You're not going to be blocked for disagreeing with me. Nobody gets blocked for disagreeing. You get blocked for being not a good person. That's why I block people, or just people that are just dishonest. But if you think I'm wrong, I don't care who you are, as long as you're not a dishonest interlocutor. Come on down. Snake's more than welcome. Anybody else? I thrive on disagreement. My whole channel is about people disagreeing. So why would I block people for disagreeing? That's what my channel is for, to have disagreements. I mean, go ahead. I bring it.
Gotcha. Thanks for your
super chat.
Man, you guys in the live chat are nasty. Not all of you. 99% of you are pleasant.
Oh, that's why that's what I'm
But
saying.
some of you are talking about weird stuff in the live chat.
I know.
And then Excalibur's triggered again. Thanks for your super chat. Maynard Saves says, so easily triggered, laughing my freaking A off. Block me, will you?
I don't know.
Hey, trolls have money too.
You get trolls too?
Well,
nobody's got trolls like I got trolls, dude. I have the best trolls, man. I
they're
know all the
paying to
best
say
trolls.
something.
I mean, these people have literally been stalking me for like 3 years, dude. They merely
Next
because we
up.
had the audacity to leave them years ago.
Appreciate that. Thanks for your super chat. Helios575 says, all the people hating on Steve, they lack integrity and want to drag Steve down to his level because they know they look pathetic in comparison.
And that's the type of people that subscribe to my channel. They recognize this, right? And if they don't, that's fine too. I mean, people can watch anything they want. Go watch their channels by all means. I have nothing to fear by anything they have to say. Gotcha. I just hope those people that watch them stuff are intellectually honest enough to come to my channel and ask me about it, and let's have a discussion.
Gotcha.
I mean,
thanks.
That's all I've asked.
Thanks for your super chat. Marabino, appreciate it. Marabino said, quote, if you can find a lie I've done on air, go ahead. I'll challenge you on that.
Go ahead.
That's
okay,
from,
great.
They said, Steve, as he eyes the block button.
Okay, what's the lie?
Gotcha. Thanks. So appreciate it, folks. Really fun. I really do enjoy it. Kakarot, thanks for your super chat, who said, to Steve, Nephilim free or Brody?
I'd rather have a discussion with Nephilim free. by far. I mean, we're not even, that's not even, now I don't want to debate Neffy, but I mean, if Neffy came in right now, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, knock yourself out. Neffy's been on my channel numerous times.
Gotcha.
Neffy, I have nothing personal against Neffy whatsoever. I'm the one that helped Neffy get back on the internet. He couldn't figure out how to stream. I'm the one that showed him how to stream. I have nothing personally against Neffy.
All right, we got it. Steve invented the internet,
I
everybody.
know, you can hold me
Okay,
accountable
we
for
got
that
the
later, I
story.
know.
So thanks. We appreciate it. It's always fun.
I'm so apologetic for that. I will never live that down.
We do appreciate you being here, folks. So with that, we hope you have a great night. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable.